Chapter 13:15, Collecting the Essence Divine Flames. Chapter 13:15, Collecting the Essence Divine Flames. A bizarre scene appeared. The black-colored divine flame actually surged out continuously from Huangji's body, as if something was tugging at it. In that one instant, the essence divine flames had completely slipped out of Huangji's body and were entwined around Ling Han. No! Huangji involuntarily exclaimed in shock. This was not something that he had done on purpose, wanting to use even stronger divine flames to burn Ling Han to ash. It was rather a mysterious force that had pulled the divine flames out by force. But how could this be possible? The essence divine flames were a force that belonged to the heaven and earth. They were the most ancient and strongest existence. Aside from other essence divine objects, what else could be a match for them? Even if Ling Han also possessed some essence divine object, they would only be an equal match. Why was it that he could pull out his divine flames from his body by force? This was practically an overwhelming advantage. Huangji was really in a panic, because he did not understand the situation. Ordinarily, the essence divine flames were the very most awesome existence, whether it was in the immortal realm or the netherworld. Could it be that Ling Han had a precious treasure that surpassed these two realms? In reality, it was indeed so. When he was attacked by the essence divine flames, Ling Han did not care much. After all, divine flames would also be weakened to mountain river tier in this place, and he was one who had been burnt by immortal flames. This was naturally a piece of cake for him. Yet Small Tower suddenly sent him a mental message, telling him not to resist, because it wanted to draw away this divine flame. Ling Han naturally cooperated. With them drawn into the Black Tower, wouldn't they then become his? Thus, he stood there without moving, and allowed Huangji to barrage him with divine flames. And the Black Tower indeed moved, forcibly drawing all the divine flames out of Huangji's body by force. That's right, it is indeed a source power, and can allow me to recover by a 10,000th. Small Tower declared with slight happiness. Fuck! Ling Han immediately countered, Hey. What you mean is you were planning to take them all for yourself. I was the one who drew them out in the first place, so of course they are mine. Small Tower was not the slightest bit embarrassed. Moreover, only if I completely recovered would I be able to deceive the heaven and earth, so you would still be able to hide the secret of the Black Tower when you enter into the celestial realm in future. That's plain robbery. Ling Han's heart ached. They were essence divine flames. Just from the name, he knew they were good stuff. Don't grumble so much. Coordinate with me quickly, Small Tower demanded. Though it could stimulate the Black Tower into destroying and raising the heaven and earth, that would also draw the notice of the celestial realm, so it needed Ling Han's cooperation. I can cooperate, but you have to give me a little profit. Ling Han bargained. This Thunder Tower was also without conscience, so it was impossible to squeeze anything out of it without putting up a fight. Fine. Small Tower hesitated, and finally agreed reluctantly. The man in Tower cooperated, beginning to collect these essence divine flames. Black Tower was completely capable of doing it alone, but to do it without letting off any aura required Ling Han's cooperation. That was because this place restricted the cultivation level of all existences, and Ling Han was one who had survived the immortal flame. Hong. Ling Han's hand stretched out of the black flames and formed a hand sign. He opened his mouth, and these divine flames were instantly swallowed into his mouth. Give it back to me. Huangji was boiling with fury and hurriedly rushed forwards to snatch them back. They were one of his most important trump cards, so how could he simply sit by and watch as Ling Han snatch them away? In his panic, he did not ponder the question of how Ling Han actually managed to collect the essence divine flames. The Stone Emperor and the others were all frozen, looking on dumbfounded. Were they really essence divine flames? Wasn't it said that even a saint could be burnt with a single touch? How could it now be drawn back and forth between the two of them? As Ling Han moved to exchange blows with Huangji, he continued to endlessly absorb the divine flames with the technique that Small Tower had taught him. Pitifully, these Essence Divine Flames still planned to fight back, but it was completely impossible that they could oppose the control of the Black Tower. Wasting effort, they formed various shapes, yet they were swallowed bit by Ling Han. It looked like they had entered into Ling Han's mouth, but in truth, they were immediately absorbed by the Black Tower. After all, the Essence Divine Flames were filled with enmity towards him, so it was completely impossible that they would fuse with him. Instead, they wanted to burn him to nothing, so if they truly entered his body, it would definitely not be a good thing. Being able to bear the might of the Divine Flames and letting the Divine Flames burn inside one's body were completely two different things. As he saw how the Divine Flames became smaller and smaller, Huangji was anxious, furious, and panicking all at the same time. He exploded with even greater battle prowess, wanting to stop Ling Han from swallowing his Divine Flames. Die! 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 Huangji roared loudly. Since his birth, he had never lost his composure as much as he did in this instant. It couldn't be helped, though. This was a trump card that he depended on the most. Sorry, but whatever has entered my pocket would be mine, Ling Han said smilingly. With Small Tower acting, the rate at which the Black Tower was swallowing was becoming faster and faster. It was not taking so much time because the Black Tower was not working hard enough. On the contrary, Small Tower was controlling the absorption rate to prevent it from being too fast, for it could cause the aura of the Black Tower to leak. Bastard! Huangji finally drew his Saint Tool. The ancient mirror appeared, and boom! A fiery dragon appeared in the mirror, roaring as it surged towards Ling Han. When he saw this Saint Tool, the North Emperor's expression involuntarily darkened. Though he was a magnanimous man, seeing this god tool that had defeated himself still caused a ripple in his emotions. After all, it was not Huangji who had defeated him, but rather this Saint Tool. Wang, the divine demon sword appeared, and Ling Han gripped it in his hand, slashing out towards that dragon of fire. Over 100 sword projections swept past, and that fire dragon was instantly reduced to pieces, without the slightest bit of might left. The North Emperor and the others all looked stunned, turning their eyes towards the divine demon sword in Ling Han's grasp. The might of a Saint Tool was obvious to all, but it seemed like this sword of Ling Han's was even stronger than a Saint Tool. Gasp! In this place where cultivation levels were equal, Saint Tools would definitely be stronger than other god tools. However, this sword of Ling Han's was even stronger, and that meant this was also a Saint Tool, and its grade was even higher. After all, Saints were divided into 4 cultivation levels, so Saint Tools naturally would be divided into 4 levels. Had they seen a ghost? A Saint Tool couldn't possibly appear under normal conditions, yet now they appeared one after another as if they were as common as level 4 or 5 god tools. The Black Tower swallowed the last bit of divine flame, and Ling Han also closed his mouth, revealing an expression of satisfaction. He looked at Huangji, his eyes filled with admiration. He was fond of these people with nature-defying good fortune. What was theirs would be his, and it could save him quite a lot of effort. Huangji, though, was fuming as he exclaimed, "Return my divine flame to me." "Don't be so petty. We all can." Ling Han had just spoken a few words when his expression drastically changed. That was because Small Tower had already refined those Essence Divine Flames, and it had indeed gave him a portion as per their agreement. However, this portion was not even the share of a 10,000th. It couldn't screw him over like this. Fuck, this robbing tower, tricking even him. Small Tower. Ling Han roared through his divine sense. "What are you shouting for? My ears are not bad." Small Tower humphed. "You're just giving me this little bit?" Ling Han asked angrily. The one putting his life on the line was him, but he actually didn't even get much profit out of it. This was really too much. Chapter 13:16. The Unfortunate Huangji. Chapter 13:16. The Unfortunate Huangji. I only said that I'll share a bit with you. However, I didn't say how much. Small Tower said shamelessly. "You're even more shameless than me." Ling Han was completely speechless at this moment. Small Tower was far too underhanded. "Brat, you'll only be well if I'm well," Small Tower said. It even wore a philosophical look on its face as it spoke. Ling Han was so angry that he wanted to ignore Small Tower. However, he was already at the peak stage of the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier at this moment, so if he didn't break through, it would be useless no matter how much of the divine flames he was given. In fact, receiving too much would only overfill him and cause him to explode. However, he was still furious that the fucking Small Tower had screwed him over like this. "Give it back to me," Huangji roared in fury. The person before him had clearly stolen his divine flames, yet he was actually wearing a pissed-off expression. Was he trying to infuriate him to death? He howled in anger, and black divine flames burst from his eyes. These were essence divine flames, and he had refined a tiny amount of them into his body. He had genuinely only refined a very tiny amount. Due to the limit of his cultivation level, he couldn't refine any more than he already had. After all, these were essence divine flames that even saints were apprehensive of. However, this tiny amount of essence divine flames had given him the ability to oppose the power of heaven's might. Otherwise, if his battle prowess were decreased by 2 stars, he would fall from a supreme king tier to become an ordinary king tier. "You forced me to do this." Huangji's hands became a blur as he started to form a series of complicated hand seals. His aura became even more powerful, and it was as if his battle prowess had elevated by 1 to 2 stars. This was absolutely incredible. After reaching the level of Supreme King tier, it should have been impossible for them to become any stronger. However, Huangji had to pay a significant price for this power. A lock of his hair immediately became white, and his appearance also seemed to age by numerous years. Wrinkles appeared on his forehead. Ling Han instantly understood what had happened. Huangji had indeed become more powerful, yet he had paid for this power with his lifespan. Moreover, he had paid a significant amount by the looks of it. Otherwise, it wouldn't have reflected on his appearance so clearly. This made a lot of sense. If Huangji were only a 3 or 4-star genius, he would have obtained an extra 2 stars of battle prowess if he sacrificed several hundred or several thousand years of his lifespan. However, he had already reached the theoretical peak of the mountain river tier, so he would have needed to sacrifice an astronomical number of years of his lifespan to elevate his battle prowess by 1 to 2 stars. This was similar to how explosive thunder pills were useless to Ling Han now. After reaching the pinnacle level, trying to advance any further would be extremely difficult. However, Huangji had no choice but to sacrifice his lifespan for more power. The essence divine flames were of tremendous importance to him, and he definitely couldn't lose them just like that. Otherwise, the speed of his cultivation would drop at least 10-fold, perhaps even 100-fold. Even if he were a genius, he couldn't stand to lose so much time. If a heavenly body tier elite were stuck at the same cultivation level for tens of millions of years, they would only end up dying at the heavenly body tier. However, if they could raise the speed of their cultivation by 100-fold, it was very likely that they would be able to reach the Eternal River tier or even Genesis tier. Cultivation was like a race against time. One had to advance to the next level before they reached the end of their lifespan. This was like sailing upstream. One would be swept back if they didn't advance. Anyhow, Huangji's power was definitely unparalleled in the mountain river tier at this moment. When he threw a punch, even space shuddered, with swirls of shock waves traveling through the air. Pong, pong, pong. It mattered little that Faceless and the others were also king tiers. They were ruthlessly swept off their feet by the overwhelming shock waves. Just the shock waves alone were already this powerful, so how could Ling Han defend against this strike? He was the target of this strike, and he would have to face its domineering might head-on. Pong! Ling Han threw a punch, and his fist collided with Huangji's. The muscles on Ling Han's arms rippled like the waves of a disturbed lake. The ripples traveled from his fist all the way up to his shoulder. Pa, pa, pa. His skin instantly cracked open, blood exploding into the air. Then, His entire body was sent flying. The difference between their power was far too great. However, Ling Han somersaulted in the air and landed firmly on the ground. He then channeled the indestructible Heaven Scroll, healing his right arm at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. These were merely flesh wounds, and his godly bones were completely unscathed. Thus, healing these wounds couldn't be any easier. Pooh! Everyone spluttered in surprise. There was a difference of 2 stars between their power, meaning that Huangji should have enjoyed a crushing advantage, yet Ling Han had only received some minor flesh wounds. Moreover, he had even healed these wounds in an instant. What kind of defense was this? What kind of recovery ability was this? In reality, how could the Stone Emperor and North Emperor, a descendant and a disciple of a saint, respectively, not have secret techniques to elevate their battle prowess? However, like with Huangji, these secret techniques required them to pay a heavy price. In fact, this price was so heavy that it was far more valuable than obtaining the first place in this 2-realm prodigy gathering. Huangji was only going so far because his essence divine flames had been stolen by Ling Han. Thus, he was willing to sacrifice millions of years of his lifespan to snatch these essence divine flames back. However, Huangji was destined to suffer a huge loss. Freak, the rock spirit muttered. Among the spirits of the 5 elements, the wood spirits were the most gifted in terms of recovery ability, while the rock spirits were the most gifted in terms of defensive ability. However, Ling Han's defense was no weaker than his, and his recovery ability was also no weaker than that of wood spirits. Thus, even he couldn't help but exclaim in surprise and admiration. With how incredibly freakish he was, could anyone at the same cultivation level as him kill him? The Stone Emperor turned to look at the North Emperor, who responded with a shake of his head. This was the first time he had felt so helpless against someone. Huangji's face was a picture of shock and disbelief. He stared at Ling Han dazedly, and he almost felt an urge to rub his eyes to see whether or not he was seeing things right. However, as a supreme king tier, he was confident that he wasn't hallucinating. Ling Han was genuinely unfazed after eating his strike. "I don't believe this," Huangji said through gritted teeth. He threw another punch. Boom! Crimson flames curled through the air as his iron-like fist smashed toward Ling Han. The might of this fist had already soared to a level infinitesimally close to the peak stage of the low extreme of the Sun-Moon tier. Pong! As expected, Ling Han was sent flying again. A difference of 2 stars was truly too great, especially since they were both supreme prodigies who were very evenly matched to begin with. Like before, Ling Han's flesh cracked open again, sending blood spraying through the air. However, his godly bones were still unscathed. There was a burst of golden light, and Ling Han recovered at an incredible rate. It wasn't long before he was fully healed again. This was Ling Han's strongest quality. The indestructible Heaven Scroll was a cultivation technique from the celestial realm. This was a cultivation technique that even saints couldn't match. "I don't believe this. I don't believe this. I don't believe this." Huangji descended into a frenzy, refusing to accept such an outcome. He launched a flurry of strikes, all of them imbued with his full power and belief of invincibility. He was going to obliterate Ling Han. Unfortunately, however, his efforts were all in vain. In fact, even his power was starting to drop by the minute. He had sacrificed a huge amount of his lifespan to elevate his 10-star battle prowess by another 2 stars, yet the millions of years of his lifespan had gone to waste just like that. 10 stars was a pinnacle to begin with, and this wasn't something that could be transcended. If one wanted to defy heaven, they would have to pay an exorbitant price. "I'm truly sorry. It was your greatest misfortune to come across me," Ling Han said. He started to counterattack. With his powerful physique to support him, he didn't need to worry about defending at all. Being as powerful as Huangji was, he could naturally still look down on everyone else present. Even if the 7 prodigies teamed up, they would still be no match for him. However, he was unable to breach Ling Han's defenses no matter what he did. His attack, which could easily crush any other king tier, was completely useless against Ling Han. All it could do was give him some minor flesh wounds. Was this truly the final battle of the two-realm prodigy gathering? Why did it look like a one-sided pummeling? Moreover, it wasn't the stronger Huangji that was pummeling Ling Han, but instead Ling Han who was pummeling the stronger Huangji. Faceless and the others all wore strange expressions. Considering it's a tower and has no face, this line is probably supposed to refer to the tone of voice instead. Chapter 1317, King Among Kings. 1317 King Among Kings. In terms of battle prowess alone, this battle was indeed worthy of being the final battle. Right now, Huangji's power had already soared to the late stage of the low extreme of the Sun-Moon tier. He had already surpassed the pinnacle limit of 10 stars, and this was absolutely petrifying. However, in terms of outcome, this battle was an absolute joke. When Huangji's devastating strikes hit Ling Han, all they could do was break a bit of his skin. They were unable to cause any damage to his godly bones. Ling Han was like an indestructible battle god. Meanwhile, although Ling Han was counterattacking, he didn't aim to kill Huangji. Huangji was blessed by the fortune of heaven, so perhaps he could still obtain many precious treasures in the future. That being the case, it was better to let him live so that Ling Han could rob him again in the future. It would be a shame to kill him now. If Huangji knew of Ling Han's thoughts at this moment, he would definitely vomit blood in anger. Now, however, he had already expended most of his sacrificed lifespan. His power continued to weaken, dropping from 2 stars above the pinnacle to 1 star, and then down to 0 stars. With their battle prowess now even, how could Huangji possibly be Ling Han's opponent? He was suppressed in all fields, with his defense and recovery ability both weaker than Ling Han's. In terms of god tools, Ling Han's divine demon sword was a future celestial tool. Huangji vomited 3 mouthfuls of blood as he frantically retreated hundreds of steps. He didn't launch any further attack. There was a baleful look in his eyes as he glowered at Ling Han. In this place, he genuinely couldn't defeat Ling Han. However, this didn't matter, as they wouldn't remain in this place forever. Once they left, he could return to his cultivation level of the low extreme of the heavenly body tier. Meanwhile, Ling Han would only be a Sun-Moon tier cultivator. As such, Ling Han wouldn't be able to withstand a single strike of his. At that time, he could personally kill Ling Han and take back his essence divine flames. Ling Han smiled faintly. Even if Huangji could defeat him, his essence divine flames had already been refined by the hooligan small tower. Right now, there wasn't even a wisp of the essence divine flame remaining. So, how could Huangji snatch it back? Are you admitting defeat? He asked with a smile. Huangji breathed heavily, and it was as if he wanted to chop Ling Han into 10,000 pieces. However, he was a king tier, after all, so he was still able to contain his fury. He flung his sleeves and walked to the side. It was always him who had said these words to other people. Now that he was hearing it from Ling Han, it was as if his heart were being cut by a blade. This was an excruciating feeling. In any case, the king among kings had finally been born. It was Ling Han. Who would have guessed this? The final victor wasn't Huangji, nor was it the Stone Emperor or North Emperor. It certainly wasn't Yang Lin, the Cloud Maiden, or Yu Ying either. Instead, it was this little-known youth. Only those who had heard of Ling Han's name in the two-realm battlefield would wave their hands in excitement and exclaim, "I knew this would be the result." Because the 3-day time limit hadn't expired yet, the blessing of heaven and earth didn't immediately descend, even though the final victor had already been determined. Congratulations, Brother Ling. The Stone Emperor, North Emperor, Faceless, and the others all walked over to congratulate Ling Han. Even Yang Lin and the Cloud Maiden came over to congratulate him. In fact, there was a bright glimmer in the Cloud Maiden's beautiful eyes as she looked at him, and it was clear that there were other feelings brewing in her mind. Beautiful women loved heroic men. Ling Han smiled as he accepted their congratulations. At this moment, the heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden finally arrived after walking up from the foot of the mountain. She had seen the battle clearly from there, so she was also filled with joy and delight. Who would have imagined that Ling Han, someone she had bullied at will before, would grow to become such a powerful individual? "This is my wife," Ling Han said with a smile. He introduced the heavenly phoenix divine maiden to everyone. Of course, this everyone only included the 5 people from the immortal realm. The 2 beings from the netherworld stood far away from him as if he were plague. The Stone Emperor and the others all greeted the heavenly phoenix divine maiden with a smile. Their attitudes were extremely kind and cordial. Even if they didn't think much about her, they would still have to show her respect simply because of her relationship with Ling Han. Anyhow, Ling Han had already left a deep impression in their mind, so they naturally didn't mind being more friendly with those close to him, though the heavenly phoenix divine maiden couldn't even be considered a true king tier. In the beginning, the Cloud Maiden had only been curious about Ling Han. She was curious about how someone could cultivate to become such a freak. However, after seeing Ling Han being all lovey-dovey with the heavenly phoenix divine maiden, she started to feel a little dissatisfied. Had he not noticed her stunning beauty? Why was he so into the heavenly phoenix divine maiden? In terms of looks, neither she nor the heavenly phoenix divine maiden was more beautiful than the other. However, in terms of cultivation, talent, and status, she was galaxies ahead of the heavenly phoenix divine maiden. So, why did Ling Han only have eyes for the heavenly phoenix divine maiden? Her competitive nature was roused, so she purposefully badgered Ling Han to make small talk with him. Whenever the heavenly phoenix divine maiden spoke, she would definitely target her with rebukes. She wanted to rile the heavenly phoenix divine maiden up so that she would try to compete with her. Once she did, it would be blatantly obvious which of them was the more talented. Ling Han didn't pay any heed to this. He liked the heavenly phoenix divine maiden not because of her beauty, but because of their relationship and lovesickness that had spanned 10,000 years. Their love was already determined by fate, and this was something that the Cloud Maiden could never make up for. The time limit of 3 days finally expired. Wang. A column of light descended from the sky and enveloped Ling Han, the only remaining person on the platform. He was receiving a blessing of fortune. Immediately after, however, another column of light descended and enveloped Huangji. He was also receiving a blessing of fortune. What? Pa, 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 pa. Another 4 columns of light descended, enveloping Faceless, the North Emperor, the Stone Emperor, and Yang Lin. They also received a blessing of fortune. Isn't the blessing of heaven and earth only meant for the final victor, the king among kings? Everyone was stunned. This was far too strange, no? Could it be that one will be recognized by this place as long as they surpass the peak stage of the Pinnacle level? Then why has this never occurred before? Simple. Because only one king tier has ever appeared in each of the past gatherings. In other words, Supreme King tiers have never appeared before. This time, however, a whopping 6 Supreme King tiers have appeared all at once. They've all unleashed a battle prowess above the peak stage of the Pinnacle level. Even though Yang Lin had relied on alchemical pills to surpass the peak stage of the Pinnacle level, he had indeed obtained a battle prowess powerful enough to challenge King among Kings during that limited amount of time. In other words, he had become a king among kings for that short period of time. Yang Lin and Faceless were naturally beside themselves with delight, and they hurriedly sat down to absorb the celestial qi. This celestial qi could help them complete their comprehension of the regulations. The Stone Emperor and the North Emperor were also overjoyed. After all, they had come here especially for this celestial qi. The rewards offered by the 2 imperial empires certainly weren't enough to attract them here. After all, one of them was the descendant of a saint, while the other was a disciple of a saint. Only Huangji wanted to vomit blood in anger. If he had known this earlier, would he have still fought tooth and nail with Ling Han? Not only had he lost his essence divine flames, but he had even lost millions of years of his lifespan. Although he was still young, and could definitely advance to the Eternal River tier where he would gain hundreds of millions of years of lifespan, who was willing to shave so many years off their life? He had sacrificed so much, yet he had still been unable to snatch his essence divine flames back. Even the blessing of heaven and earth was unable to bring him any joy. Simply put, the value of this blessing was completely insignificant compared to the value of the essence divine flames. I'll deal with him when we get out of this place, he said in his mind. He definitely had to snatch the essence divine flames back. Definitely. Wong, wong, wong. Celestial chi permeated through the air, yet it was a shame that the Cloud Maiden, the heavenly phoenix divine maiden, and Tuoba Dong could only watch on in envy from the sides. There was nothing they could do about this. This was a reward that belonged to Supreme King Tears. Ling Han sat cross-legged as he aggressively absorbed the celestial chi, perfecting his comprehension of the regulations for each of his cultivation levels. Chapter 1318, 1318 Might of the Stone Emperor. 1318 Might of the Stone Emperor. If Ling Han ventured to the netherworld, of course he could complete his comprehension of the regulations. However, the netherworld only had its own set of regulations. This was unlike the celestial chi, which contained both the regulations of the immortal realm and the regulations of the netherworld. Compared to comprehending a single set of regulations by itself, comprehending this celestial chi was a complete breeze. It could be said that comprehending regulations in the netherworld for 10,000 years wouldn't be as beneficial as comprehending celestial chi in this place for a mere 2 hours. Moreover, if an immortal realm being ventured into the netherworld, they would be like a radiant sun amid the darkness because of the different regulations that they practiced. They would stick out like a sore thumb and become a clear target wherever they went. Add to that the animosity between the immortal realm and the netherworld, and it was certain that they would be hunted down relentlessly. If heavenly body tier elites couldn't kill them, then the netherworld would send eternal river tier elites. If eternal river tier elites couldn't kill them, then the netherworld would send Genesis tier saints. In the netherworld, immortal realm beings wouldn't be able to wield the power of regulations, regardless of how powerful they were. Even if one were invincible in the immortal realm, they would fall to the level of an also-ran if they ever crossed into the netherworld. Their death couldn't come any quicker or swifter. In any case, the regulations of the netherworld also had the ability to corrupt people. If one stayed in the netherworld for a long time, they would indeed be able to comprehend the regulations of the netherworld. However, the immortal realm regulations that they had previously comprehended would also disappear. This was like a multiple-choice question where one could only pick one option. It was impossible to pick both options. Thus, the preciousness of this celestial chi was astounding. Otherwise, why would a descendant of a saint and a disciple of saint have come here? They only had 3 days to absorb this celestial chi, so the 6 people didn't dare to waste even a second of their time. Even Huangji forcefully suppressed his anger to absorb as much of the celestial chi as he could, completing his comprehension of the regulations. This could elevate his battle prowess and, more importantly, help him complete his comprehension of the regulations. By completing his comprehension of the regulations, he would obtain a foundation that would allow him to reach greater heights. Ling Han had already reached the peak stage of the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier, so his cultivation wouldn't advance any further unless he broke through to the Pinnacle level. In fact, this wasn't a bad thing at this moment, as he didn't need to waste any of his energy on raising his cultivation level. He could focus his full attention on completing his comprehension of the regulations. The previous time he had absorbed celestial chi, he had perfected his regulations to the high extreme of the mountain river tier. This could elevate his battle prowess by a little, though this amount of elevation was nothing compared to the pinnacle level of the mountain river tier. After 1 day, Ling Han successfully perfected his comprehension of the regulations to the pinnacle level of the mountain river tier. If he battled Huangji again at this moment, he was confident that he could suppress him in under 100 exchanges. Of course, Huangji had also perfected his comprehensions now, so his battle prowess had definitely risen significantly as well. Since both of them had seen great improvements, the victor of the battle would be determined by who had comprehended more regulations. Another day passed, and Ling Han perfected his regulations to the low extreme of the Sun-Moon tier. However, the speed of his comprehension became slower and slower. Even though his comprehension ability was astonishing, and even though he was receiving the blessing of heaven and earth at this moment, raising his comprehension speed by hundreds upon thousands of times, there was still a limit to how fast he could complete comprehension. 3 days passed, and the columns of light vanished one after another. Ling Han stood up and opened his eyes, which were filled with images of stars and galaxies. These images then disappeared, and his eyes returned to normal. However, there was a gentle look in his eyes, and they gave off a feeling of deep profoundness. Huangji and the four others also stood up at almost exactly the same time. There was a look of satisfaction on their faces, and it was clear that they had all enjoyed huge improvements these past 3 days. Of course, the corners of Huangji's mouth were still twitching from time to time, and everything would have looked much more peaceful if not for this. Since we've received the blessing of heaven and earth, we can probably leave this place now. Boom! The 9 of them instantly felt heavier as a strange force tugged at their bodies. In the next instant, they had already appeared outside the canyon of the mountain river forest. Not only them, but the hundreds of prodigies who had entered the mountain river forest were also teleported out. This signified the conclusion of the two-realm prodigy gathering. Human! There was a furious roar, and Huangji's black hair billowed in the air as he glowered at Ling Han. His lock of white hair stood out starkly. Huangji didn't hold back as he unleashed the full power of his heavenly body tier aura, and a heavenly body that was only the size of a palm radiated with an overwhelming aura that belied its size. It was as if this heavenly body could crush anyone into a pulp. Low extreme of the heavenly body tier. If he were on the Joint Peace Planet, he could be regarded as a supreme being, although he wouldn't the most powerful of them. Here, however, heavenly body tier elites could only be regarded as elites. In fact, those at the low extreme were only barely worthy of being called elites. Anyhow, the battle prowess of king tiers like Huangji could definitely surpass 6 stars. In other words, his battle prowess was on par with the late stage or even peak stage of the medium extreme. More importantly, he still owned a Saint Tool. This was a weapon of mass destruction, and it was capable of killing any heavenly body tier elite. In fact, it could even challenge elites at the low extreme of the Eternal River tier. Ling Han furrowed his brows. Do I have to use the Black Tower? Heh, since the two-realm prodigy gathering has already concluded, Huangji, you're now using your power to pick on the weak. The Stone Emperor leaped over to stand in front of Ling Han. It was clear that he intended to help him. Pick on the weak? Huangji sneered loudly and said, I've only cultivated for 200 years, and this person has definitely cultivated for longer than me. So, how can my challenge toward him be regarded as picking on the weak? In the cultivation world, battling against those at the same cultivation level was regarded as fair, and battling against those at the same age was also regarded as fair. The Stone Emperor faltered, and he turned back to glance at Ling Han. A look of surprise spread across his face, but then he laughed loudly and said, I suggest you look again closely. Is he really older than you? Huangji was dismissive at first, yet after glancing at Ling Han, his expression suddenly became one of shock. In the mountain river forest, the mysterious power of heaven and earth had rendered him unable to determine Ling Han's situation. However, after returning to the outside world, he had now recovered Ho's heavenly body tier cultivation. Thus, he could naturally tell that Ling Han's age was definitely under 100. If his cultivation level were a little higher, he would be able to refine his estimate to under 50. However, he would definitely be even more shocked. To immortals, 100 years was truly not a long time. For many people, this was even shorter than one session of cultivation in seclusion. Anyhow, it was now clear that one of them was under 100 years old, while the other was around 200 years old. The difference between their age was at least twofold. This being the case, how could they be compared to each other? If anyone called this a battle between prodigies at the same age, they would surely have to be joking. Huangji's expression continued to change. In the end, he humphed coldly and said, Fine, I won't pick on the weak then. Hand me the essence divine flames, and I'll spare you this one time. The next time we meet, I'll definitely kill you without mercy. He definitely couldn't lose the essence divine flames. You've got to be joking, that's my battle spoils. Ling Han smiled faintly and continued, Huangji, if you're dissatisfied with the results, why don't you suppress your cultivation and battle against me at the same cultivation level? See how I defeat you again. Huangji chuckled coldly and said, "Humph, I'm hundreds of thousands of times more powerful than you, so why do I have to accommodate your needs?" He ignored the presence of the Stone Emperor and resolutely launched an attack at Ling Han. "Impudence!" The Stone Emperor bellowed loudly, and his voice transformed into a giant fist that smashed toward Huangji. Pung! Huangji was instantly sent flying. Pooh! Blood and flesh exploded from his body. He was no match for the Stone Emperor. Wang! For heavenly bodies materialized around the Stone Emperor. Consummate level of the heavenly body tier. No, perhaps he was at the pinnacle level of the heavenly body tier. The fifth heavenly body could be revealed or hidden by its owner. As expected of a saint's son, regardless of how powerful Huangji was, his cultivation level meant that he was no match for the Stone Emperor, who was at least at the consummate level. Moreover, the Stone Emperor was also a supreme king tier, so he wouldn't lose against Huangji even if he were at the same cultivation level as him. Damn it! Huangji was drenched in blood, yet he was wild with rage at this moment. He retrieved his saint tool. Wang! His ancient mirror shuddered slightly, and a small dot of light gathered on its surface. Chapter 1319, 1319 Abyss. 1319 Abyss. Xiao. The dot of light instantly transformed into a beam that shot at the Stone Emperor. "You think only you have a saint tool?" the Stone Emperor said in disdain. Boom! His clothes instantly lit up, forming a powerful defense. Pung! The beam of light crashed into the Stone Emperor, yet it was unable to breach his defenses. One had to realize that this robe was knitted from thread that was made from phoenix blood true gold. This thread had been refined by the Cloud Stone Saint, and he had imbued it with his saintly martial intent, raising the saintly material to the peak of its abilities. So, just how powerful was this robe? This was a clash between saint tools, and the Stone Emperor was no weaker than Huangji. In fact, he still had some power to spare. "I've no time to bully you. Fuck off," the Stone Emperor chided. They were both at the heavenly body tier, yet he was at the consummate level. They both owned saint tools, yet as a consummate level elite, he could naturally unleash more of its power and might. Although Huangji had almost been invincible in the mountain river forest, he wouldn't necessarily be the strongest prodigy if everyone unleashed their full power. For example, Ling Han had won first place, yet if they battled now, the North Emperor, the Stone Emperor, and Faceless could all suppress him. After all, he still hadn't reached the pinnacle level of the Sun-Moon tier yet. Huangji gritted his teeth in anger. He possessed a saint tool that should have been able to kill any heavenly body tier elite, yet he was unable to deal with a melee Sun-Moon tier cultivator at this moment. Rumble. Everyone staggered as they felt a tremor beneath their feet. What's going on? Before they could come to their senses, there was a loud crack, and the earth beneath their feet collapsed with a deafening boom. Everyone fell into the earth. A bottomless abyss had unexpectedly opened up beneath them. This sudden turn of events left everyone flabbergasted. Some heavenly body tier elites tried to fly up, yet they were shocked to discover that the regulations of heaven and earth were far too chaotic in this place. In fact, they could use neither the regulations of the netherworld nor the regulations of the immortal realm. Thus, the heavenly body tier elites could only free fall down the abyss alongside the Sun-Moon tier and Mountain River tier cultivators. Only Eternal River tier elites could manage to hover upward, though there were only very few of them. They all wore solemn expressions. The sudden appearance of this abyss left even them feeling apprehensive. In fact, they were so apprehensive that none of them reached down to grab any of the other cultivators. Otherwise, with their abilities, they should have been capable of rescuing at least 1/10 of the cultivators. Boom! Many people were like furious arrows, shooting down the abyss quicker and quicker under the influence of gravity. What was astonishing was the fact that this abyss was incredibly deep. They had already been free-falling for 100 heartbeats, yet there was still no indication that they were nearing the bottom. All they could hear was the howling wind becoming louder and louder in their ears. At this moment, those who possessed the bloodlines of demonic beasts capable of flight all activated their secret techniques and unfurled their wings. They quickly regained control over their bodies and started to fight against the gravitational pull of the abyss. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden also spread her phoenix wings. However, in order to avoid injuring others by accident, she shrunk the size of her wings to 9 meters in total. She beat her wings and flew toward Ling Han, and then pulled him into her embrace. "I can't fly up," she yelped in astonishment. Ling Han nodded upon hearing this. This abyss possessed a profound suction force. Otherwise, if there were only gravity involved, their speed wouldn't have reached such a level in such a short amount of time. "We'll land at the bottom first," Ling Han said. "This suction force can't remain this powerful forever. We'll fly back up when it weakens." The heavenly phoenix divine maiden nodded in agreement. She flapped her wings and started to soar toward the bottom of the abyss instead. They would see just how deep this abyss ran. After an entire hour of flight, they finally saw signs of the bottom. However, like a carpet of thorns, columns of razor-sharp stones poked out from the ground. Many of those who had reached the bottom before them were impaled on these stone columns, causing their intestines and organs to spill everywhere. It was truly a wretched sight. Fortunately, they were all immortals, so this amount of damage wouldn't be fatal. The wounded cultivators were all trying their best to pull themselves off the stone columns. Whoosh! A burst of wind swept toward a cave that lay before them. It was this wind that had formed the powerful suction force. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden retracted her wings. Then, both she and Ling Han found a stone column to hold onto so that they could resist the powerful pull of the suction force. Ling Han surveyed the surroundings. This was an underground cave, and it was extremely, extremely large. Meanwhile, another pitch-black cave lay before them, and he couldn't see into its depths even with his incredible eyesight. Whoosh! The burst of wind swept through the surroundings with incredible force. "Ah!" Someone cried out in astonishment. They had failed to resist the pull of the wind, and they were quickly swept away, disappearing into the depths of the pitch-black cave. After a short while, their screams suddenly ceased, not to be heard again. The darkness in this abyss could swallow even sight, and thus it was simply impossible to see the depths of the cave clearly. What in the world was going on? Pong! A palm-sized object landed on the ground not far from where Ling Han was. This object was surprisingly heavy, and it caused terrifying shock waves to surge into the surroundings. Pong! 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 The stone columns around it were instantly shattered into pieces. Fuck! I almost died from that. A miniature person of 3 inches tall crawled up from the ground. Wasn't this the Stone Emperor? He possessed the bloodline of rock spirits, so he was actually heavier than a mountain even though he was so small in stature. Thus, he didn't need to activate his origin power at all, as the suction force wasn't able to move him a single bit. "This place is quite strange," the North Emperor said as he strode over. He had already activated the saber in his hand. This was a level 15 god tool, the most powerful god tool below the level of Saint tools. However, due to his cultivation level, the North Emperor wasn't able to unleash the full might of this saber. Yu Ying, the Cloud Maiden, Yang Lin, and the other king tiers all walked over. They were brimming with origin power, so they could maintain their balance and resist the wind even if they didn't hold onto the stone columns. Meanwhile, the prodigies of the Netherworld also gathered together on the other side. Right now, neither side trusted each other. The Netherworld believed that this was a trap laid by the Immortal Realm, while the Immortal Realm believed that this was a trap laid by the Netherworld. However, no one knew the truth of the situation. Ah! Screams continued to ring out as more and more people were swept away into the pitch-black cave by the strange wind. Their voices would all vanish after a short moment. Moreover, those who were swept away were all mountain river tier cultivators. It was evident that they were too weak to resist the power of the strange wind. However, this still astonished Ling Han and the others. They naturally didn't pay much heed to the mountain river tier cultivators, but they were surprised by the fact that just this wind alone was already so formidable. This being the case, would there be other more astonishing things lying in wait for them? Humph! For Eternal River tier elites walked over. For the Immortal Realm, this was the Wide Travel Monk King and the Wind Rider Divine King. As for the Netherworld, Ling Han wasn't too sure who they were. One looked like a pale-faced scholar, while the other was a wolf-headed brute. They were both incredibly powerful. Why are you hiding in the shadows? Show yourself. The Wind Rider Divine King roared. He lashed out with his palm, sending a silver river into the pitch-black cave. There were hundreds of glowing heavenly bodies in the silver river, and they illuminated the entire cave. Pong! Some unknown being in the depths of the cave attacked the silver river, instantly shattering it into pieces. The cave instantly became pitch-black again. However, a shocked expression spread across Ling Han's face. He had activated the Eye of Truth and seen the cave especially clearly. Meanwhile, the Stone Emperor and the others were either more powerful than him or also possessed a similar secret technique to him. As such, they were also able to catch a glimpse of the depths of the cave. Chapter 1320, Evil Beas. Chapter 1320, Evil Beas. That was a monster. Ling Han didn't know how to describe this monster. It was tremendously large, reaching at least 300 meters in size. It was also humanoid in shape. If this were all, it would be a stretch to call it a monster. Indeed, what made this creature monstrous was the fact that its flesh and muscles were all composed of corpses. Some of the corpses belonged to cultivators, while some of the corpses belonged to demonic beasts. Regardless of who the corpses belonged to, they were all attached to the monster's body just like that. It was incredibly repulsive. As disgusting as this creature was, it still had a nose, eyes, and a large mouth. When it opened its mouth, it would generate an overwhelming suction force, which was the source of the strange wind that had sucked people away. Those who had been sucked in were all chomped into two. So, it turned out that this monster was the source of the strange suction force. Ling Han and the others were all stunned. This monster was able to generate such a powerful suction force just by inhaling air. Moreover, it had obliterated the Wind Rider Divine King's attack so casually. Its strength was petrifying. It was definitely at the Eternal River tier. Not only this, but it was also at the high extreme, perhaps even the consummate level. However, there was no way that it was at the Genesis tier. Otherwise, it wouldn't have needed to move to block the Wind Rider Divine King's attack. If it were a Genesis tier saint, just a wisp of its aura would have been enough to suppress an Eternal River tier elite. Anyhow, it was shocking that such a monstrosity lay under the two-realm battlefield. What kind of evil beast is this? The Wide Travel Monk King asked. He was a bald monk whose scalp was covered in a dense pattern of divine seals. These seals continued to light up one after another. Countless corpses and blood seeped into the earth and transformed into this evil beast, the pale-faced scholar from the Netherworld guessed. One of his eyes represented Yin, like the moon, and one of his eyes represented Yang, like the sun. They both radiated with an uncanny aura. That's extremely likely, the Wind Rider Divine King said with a nod. Although there was a long-standing conflict between the two realms, the Eternal River tier elites were still leaning toward cooperation to deal with this unknown beast now. After all, beings from both the Immortal Realm and Netherworld were capable of logic and understanding. However, the evil beast in the dark cave was only capable of slaughter and consumption of flesh and blood. Whoosh! The strange wind swept over again. Surprisingly, the evil beast wasn't infuriated by the Wind Rider Divine King's attack. Instead, it continued to hunt for food. In some way, this evil beast could be regarded as extremely lazy and extremely gluttonous. Impudence. The four Eternal River tier elites attacked in unison, all unleashing their silver rivers toward the evil beast in the cave. These were the projections of the Eternal River that they had formed, and they possessed a devastating might that was capable of killing even elites at the early stage of the Eternal River tier. Squeak! An enraged roar echoed from the cave as the four silver rivers slashed over. Pong, pong, pong. The ground tremored, and the evil beast finally exited the cave, revealing itself to everyone. It didn't walk out, but crawled out instead. The corpses that hung from its body continued to open and close their mouths, creating strange sounds that sounded like the crying of ghosts. Those who heard it would become pale and feel a strong urge to cover their ears. These eerie sounds pierced straight into one's mind, and it was as if they were going to tear one's brain and soul apart. The color drained from everyone's face. What kind of monster was this? Interesting. A smile appeared on the Stone Emperor's face as his robe started to glow. Meanwhile, the North Emperor shook the saber in his hand lightly, fighting spirit oozing from his body. Ling Han shook his head. Although these two individuals were extremely strong, with one owning a level 15 god tool and one owning a saint tool, there was simply no way that their battle prowess could reach the high extreme or consummate level of the Eternal River tier. They were definitely no match for the evil beast. Their main hope of defeating this beast still lay with the 4 Eternal River tier elites. Charge! The wolf-headed brute from the netherworld roared. He dashed toward the evil beast, and there was a cold flash as he unsheathed a large azure saber. As he slashed down, this saber instantly expanded to hundreds of times its original size, transforming into something like a heavenly saber. The evil beast raised a hand to swat the heavenly saber aside. There was a loud crack, and the collision between hand and saber instantly sent devastating shock waves surging into the surroundings. Pong, 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 pong. The entire cave started to tremor under the overwhelming force of the shock waves, causing a rain of sand and stone to pour down. Strangely, however, the cave didn't collapse. Pong! The wolf-headed brute was sent flying back. However, he laughed loudly and said, "It merely possesses the power of a consummate level elite, nothing else. There's nothing to be afraid of." He bellowed loudly and charged at the evil beast again. Wong! A silver river materialized around him and whipped toward the evil beast. The evil beast howled in rage, its incredibly deep voice reverberating throughout the cave. Some mountain river tier cultivators were unable to withstand this, their heads exploding under the powerful pulse of the sound waves. In fact, even some sun-moon tier cultivators wore distressed expressions. Damn it! The Wide Travel Monk King, Wind Rider Divine King, and pale-faced scholar hurriedly dashed over to attack the evil beast. It seemed as if this evil beast didn't possess any intelligence, with its sole purpose being to slaughter living beings. As such, the Eternal River tier elites didn't mind banding together to kill it. With the 4 Eternal River tier elites working together, what did it matter that the evil beast was extremely strong? It was immediately suppressed. Just like the wolf-headed brute had said, this evil beast only possessed power at the consummate level of the Eternal River tier, but nothing else. It couldn't wield any regulations. As such, its battle prowess was nowhere near the level of a genuine consummate level elite. Meanwhile, the Wide Travel Monk King and the others were all at the high extreme of the Eternal River tier. Not to mention that they were working together to battle it, they mightn't necessarily lose to the evil beast even if they battled it one-on-one. Most importantly, this evil beast didn't possess any intelligence. All it knew to do was to charge into battle mindlessly. Thus, there was nothing for them to be afraid of. It wasn't long before they suppressed and killed the evil beast. Shockingly, however, this evil beast was genuinely composed of all kinds of corpses. After dissecting it, it was clear that each of the corpses was extremely ordinary, with the strongest one only at the heavenly body tier. Thus, it was unclear how this evil beast could wield power at the consummate level of the Eternal River tier. The 4 elites all turned their attention to the depths of the cave. With their vision, they could clearly see that there was another giant space behind where the evil beast had lain. Did this evil beast become like this because of the space behind it? The 4 elites nodded as they exchanged a glance. Although they were from 2 hostile realms, the sudden appearance of this strange land caused them to all be on very high alert. They felt that it was necessary to explore this place. Given that there were potentially common enemies ahead, the elites from the 2 realms decided to cooperate temporarily. "You people can return on this warship?" The Wide Travel Monk King tossed a Buddhist lotus platform into the air. It was a flight tool, and it started to expand once it landed on the ground, eventually growing to 900 meters in radius. It could ship everyone out of this abyss in just a few trips. In reality, without the suction force caused by the evil beast, even mountain river tier cultivators could leave this abyss by scaling his walls. The four elites ventured into the depths of the cave. "Guys, should we follow?" the North Emperor asked with a smile. "I don't care whether you guys are going or not. However, I'm definitely going," the Stone Emperor said resolutely. He was a heavenly body tier elite, and he more so possessed a saint tool. Thus, he naturally wasn't afraid. "We naturally have to check this place out," Ling Han said with a nod. The king tiers all chose to venture into the cave. Meanwhile, on the side of the netherworld, Huangji also walked over with a dark expression on his face. His eyes occasionally flitted to Ling Han, and it was clear that he was still having thoughts about snatching his essence divine flames back. In any case, most people chose to leave this abyss on the Buddhist lotus that the wide travel monk king had provided. However, there were also some brave individuals who chose to stay, believing that this place might hold some great opportunities. Anyhow, even if the sky collapsed, weren't the four Eternal River tier elites here to hold it up for them? Although the Eternal River tier elites were advancing cautiously, they were far too powerful, meaning that their speed was still as quick as lightning compared to the other cultivators. They quickly vanished from everyone's sight. Fortunately, there was only one path here, so the cultivators didn't need to worry about getting lost. After walking for a short while, a vast plain suddenly appeared before them. Chapter 1321, Sand that excites even saints. Chapter 1321, Sand that excites even saints. There was actually a vast plain so deep underground? Such a terrifying aura of death, the North Emperor immediately said. There was an alert look on his handsome face. Ling Han activated his Eye of Truth to survey this vast expanse of land. His expression involuntarily changed, and he said, "In the past hundreds of millions of years, countless people have battled to death here. Their blood has fused into this land and transformed it into a land of death." Faceless grabbed a handful of dirt. His origin power swept over it, causing the dirt and rocks to disintegrate into nothing. In the end, all that remained was a speck of golden sand. They all tensed up in suspense. Faceless was at the peak stage of the pinnacle level of the Sun-Moon tier, and his power was on par with the early stage of the low extreme of the heavenly body tier. Yet, under his refinement, this speck of sand actually hadn't disintegrated? Was this perhaps level 9 godly metal? The North Emperor took the speck of sand from Faceless' hand and studied it carefully. After a while, he said, "This speck of sand isn't as simple as it appears. It's extremely complex," the Stone Emperor concurred. He also grabbed a handful of dirt. However, after refining it, he found no speck of golden sand. He didn't give up, grabbing an even larger handful of dirt to refine. This time, he ended up with 2 specks of golden sand. The others also started to grab handfuls of dirt to refine. Before long, everyone had 1 to 2 specks of golden sand in their hand. They all started to examine it thoroughly. Ling Han was no different. These specks of sand contained no energy, yet they gave him a feeling of might and profoundness. It was as if these specks of sand had been part of the tiles of some supreme hall before. However, this hall had been obliterated, and the tiles that it was built with had turned into the sand that they now saw. While no one was looking, Ling Han tossed a speck of golden sand into the black tower so that the notionless saint could analyze it. Surprisingly, however, the orb of light that was the notionless saint instantly exclaimed in astonishment upon seeing the speck of golden sand. Even the voice that was emitted by his divine sense was quivering. However, even in the black tower, Ling Han could only hear some incomprehensible muttering. "Senior Notionless, what on earth have you discovered?" Ling Han asked. "I've seen the sky," the Notionless saint replied. This was an extremely strange reply. The sky? Seeing the sky in a speck of sand sounded absurd. At the same time, it also sounded comical. This didn't sound like something that a saint would utter. "Senior, Can you explain more clearly? Ling Han hurriedly said. However, the notionless saint continued his incomprehensible muttering as if he had become mad. Not a single part of him seemed like a saint. Ling Han was completely speechless. However, he knew that these specks of sand were incredible. The fact that they could cause a saint to lose his composure proved that they definitely had an astonishing backstory. Ling Han's interest was piqued. He clenched his hand into a fist and forcefully struck the ground. Pooh! Dirt flew into the air, and everything appeared especially normal. However, Ling Han's brows furrowed into a frown. This was because the damage caused by his strike was far too small. Although the immortal realm was stable, he had already reached the peak stage of the Sun-Moon tier. Thus, the force of his strike should have been able to crush mountains and sever rivers. Yet, he had only managed to create a small crater that measured 9 meters in diameter. Pong, pong, pong. He threw 17 punches in quick succession. At the same time, he released his divine sense to survey what is happening beneath the surface of the land. He discovered that the damage caused by his strikes was so small because most of the force of his strikes had been absorbed by some peculiar substance in the earth. It's definitely the golden sand. The others also discovered this strange phenomenon, and they all started to conduct their own tests. It wasn't long before looks of surprise appeared on their faces. This golden sand was extraordinary. What kind of place is this? Many other cultivators arrived at this moment, and they all exclaimed in astonishment. This place was far too large. Brat, hurry up and collect this sand. The more, the better. The notionless saint muttered from the black tower. His voice was quivering with excitement. Senior, what on earth is this? Ling Han asked. I don't know. However, I can say with certainty that if I had enough of this sand before, I could have reached the medium extreme, no, high extreme, or even consummate level of the Genesis tier. The notionless saint said in excitement. Although he was only an orb of light at this moment, this orb of light was flashing brilliantly as if his expression were changing. Ling Han was astonished upon hearing this, and he immediately bent down to dig up more of the dirt. He didn't refine this dirt, instead tossing it all into the black tower. There was enough space in the black tower anyway, so doing this wasn't a problem. Seeing him do this, it was as if the others had received inspiration, and they all started to collect as much of the dirt as they could. They were prodigies and king tiers of the younger generation, yet right now, they were all bending down and playing with dirt. If word of this got out, people would definitely laugh themselves to death. However, regardless of whether it was Huangji, Faceless, Yuing, the Cloud Maiden, the North Emperor, or Stone Emperor, everyone was digging up dirt with glee at this moment. Some cultivators had only just arrived, so they were absolutely clueless as to what was happening. However, upon seeing that everyone was collecting dirt, they naturally started to follow suit and collect dirt as well. This was a clear example of herd mentality. Theoretically speaking, prodigies should have been very opinionated individuals. However, what was the current situation? Even the 9 king tiers were collecting dirt, so this dirt was definitely some valuable treasure. All of a sudden, this place became like a bustling farm where everyone was fervently harvesting dirt. After a short while, many people stopped collecting the dirt. This wasn't because they didn't want to collect anymore, but because their spatial spirit tools had already been filled to the brim. They simply couldn't collect any more dirt. There was nothing they could do about this, so they started to refine the dirt as they collected it. Anyhow, no matter how large a clump of dirt as, it would only produce a few specks of golden sand after they refined it. As such, they wouldn't need to worry about their spatial spirit tools not being large enough. Ling Han quickly discovered that it would be impossible to collect all the golden sand in the place. This was because there was far too much dirt here. Not only was this plain vast, but it was also incredibly deep. It would be impossible to refine all this dirt. That being the case, he decided to stop collecting dirt for the moment. Instead, he started to ponder some important questions. What if there was an origin of this golden sand? Not only him, but many other people also raised their heads and stopped collecting the dirt, their eyes glimmering with excitement. Perhaps many of them didn't know the true value of this golden sand. However, even a fool could guess that this golden sand was extraordinary. Perhaps this plain holds some tremendous opportunity. The mountain river forest is directly above this place, and the Sun-Moon Valley is also not far away. If someone says that the formation of those two places is completely unrelated to this place, they must be absolute fools. Perhaps we can discover the secrets of the mountain river forest and Sun-Moon Valley here. Everyone was feverish with excitement. Both the mountain river forest and Sun-Moon Valley only open once every 70,000 or so years. However, if they could discover the secrets of those places, wouldn't they be able to enjoy the blessing of heaven and earth whenever they wanted? Ling Han and the other king tiers were even more knowledgeable than these ordinary cultivators. They knew that the blessing was actually celestial qi that allowed them to comprehend the regulations of the two realms. By comprehending this, they would genuinely become invincible among those at the same cultivation level. Everyone continued to advance. However, the tens of thousands of cultivators were scattered far apart, making them appear very much like a bowl of water that had been tossed into a lake, insignificant and measly. As information about the golden sand traveled out, however, it was very likely that those who had advanced further would turn around and come back. Many people would come to this place to explore the secrets of the plain. Boom! The shock waves of a battle suddenly traveled over from the distance. However, these shock waves disappeared just as quickly as they had arrived. Ling Han and the others exchanged a glance. They could all sense that these shock waves had been caused by the 4 eternal river tier elites. Although the battle had ended quickly, it had definitely lasted for at least 10 seconds. What did this mean? This meant that the 4 eternal river tier elites had come across another eternal river tier elite. This place was dangerous. Chapter 1322, 1322 Venturing into the Plain. 1322 Venturing into the Plain. The Stone Emperor laughed loudly and said, "Who would have thought that such a place existed in this galaxy?" He formed a series of hand seals, and it wasn't long before a miniature carriage whizzed over. Rather than calling this a horse-drawn carriage, it was probably better to call it a bull-drawn carriage. This was because the carriage was drawn by a metallic purple-gold bull. This was none other than the Stone Emperor's extravagant carriage. Both the animal drawing it and the carriage itself were forged from a piece of saintly material. It was so profligate that it could barely be described by words. "Guys, there's no time to waste. Let's hop on the carriage first." The Stone Emperor was the first to hop onto the carriage, and his body shrunk back to its original of 3 inches tall as he did so. "Can't you expand the size of the carriage?" the North Emperor asked unhappily. "This is saintly material, so there's no way for me to control it," the Stone Emperor said with a shrug of his shoulders. "Are you guys getting on or not?" The others exchanged a glance before all jumping toward the carriage, their bodies shrinking in size as they did so. If they didn't shrink in size, there was no way they could fit into the carriage. Instead, they would end up standing on top of the carriage. Standing on top of a Saint Tool? No. Standing on top of 2 Saint Tools? Wasn't that seeking death? Moreover, that purple gold bull had already developed a bit of intelligence. Once it truly developed awareness, it would become a saint. Who dared to stand on top of it? Fortunately, it was simple for immortals to shrink down in size. Everyone shrunk to the height of 3 inches before hopping into the carriage. In fact, this was probably a chariot and not a carriage, as it had no roof. The exterior of this chariot was decorated with carvings of formations that exuded an ancient and profound aura. There weren't many people in the chariot, with Ling Han, the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, Faceless, Yang Lin, Yuing, the Cloud Maiden, and Zuoquan the only people apart from the Stone Emperor and the North Emperor. No one else had the right to board this chariot. Although Yuing hadn't become one of the 9 kings, her strength had been clear for all to see. Meanwhile, Zuoquan was able to board thanks to his relationship with the Cloud Maiden. Otherwise, just his heavenly body tier cultivation alone wasn't enough to impress the Stone Emperor. Huangji and the others obviously couldn't board the chariot. They were members of the enemy realm, after all. The fact that they weren't fighting against each other at this moment was already a sign of impressive restraint. However, this relative peace probably wouldn't last for much longer. The chariot sped forward at incredible speeds. Before long, they had already left the bulk of the cultivators far, far behind. They were truly speeding on ahead. Even Huangji, Tuobadong, and the other king tiers couldn't keep pace with them. However, after advancing for half a day, they were still stuck in this barren plain. Casting their eyes around, all they could see was empty space. It was as if this plain was endless. Even so, they weren't discouraged. The larger this underground world was, the bigger and more astonishing the secret that it held. Grown, the chariot suddenly jolted as if it had struck something, almost turning over. Fortunately, it was being drawn by a bull that was forged from saintly material, making the ride extremely smooth. The chariot only jolted once before immediately regaining its balance. However, what on earth had it struck? One had to realize that ordinary materials would be crushed into pulp if they were struck by the purple gold bull. After all, it was a saintly material that was close to obtaining awareness. Perhaps the power of its strike hadn't reached the level of genuine saints yet, but it had definitely reached the consummate level of the eternal river tier. The Stone Emperor stopped the carriage, and everyone hopped off to check out what they had hit. They found that there was actually a bump in this otherwise flat plain, and it was because the chariot had struck it that it had jolted. "There's blood," the North Emperor said solemnly. Everyone looked over, only to see that there was a crack in the bump. Blood was gushing from this crack, and an overpowering smell of rotting flesh wafted toward them. It was as if an old corpse several hundred years old was lying beneath this bump. Crack! A fissure instantly appeared on the earth, then another and another. A web of fissures cracked open, and the earth started to tremor lightly. Pong! A large hand suddenly reached up from the earth. Like the evil beast from before, this hand was composed of numerous corpses. On the arm, there was a corpse whose stomach was sliced open and dripping with viscous black blood. It exuded a revolting smell. This arm pressed down on the earth such that the beast could pull its entire body from the earth. A revolting evil beast instantly appeared before Ling Han and the others. Like the evil beast that had been killed by the 4 Eternal River Tier elites, this evil beast was also at the Eternal River Tier. Although it was an evil beast, the aura that radiated from it was still tremendously powerful. It was as if this evil beast were a paragon of evil. This evil beast naturally saw the chariot and the cultivators, and it instantly drew a deep breath. A ferocious wind immediately lashed the surroundings, forming an overwhelmingly powerful suction force. Fortunately, it had inhaled and not exhaled. Otherwise, if this evil beast had spat its revolting breath at them, they probably would have fainted right there and then. Ferocious winds whipped through the surroundings, yet the people on the chariot remained firm and unmoving. This chariot wasn't any normal chariot, but one that had been forged from 2 saintly materials. As such, how could it be moved by an Eternal River Tier elite? "Charge!" the Stone Emperor roared with a humph. He reached over and slapped the side of the chariot. The formations on the chariot's exterior instantly lit up, intertwining to form a dazzling halo of light. At the same time, the purple gold bull opened its mouth. Pooh! A streak of purple light shot out from its mouth toward the evil beast. This streak of light was astonishingly quick, striking the evil beast's chest and tearing open a gaping hole in it. However, the evil beast wasn't severely wounded because of this. Instead, it howled in anger and swatted its giant palm at the chariot. Wong! Its giant palm arrived before them, yet a sheet of light suddenly burst from the chariot and blocked its strike. Meanwhile, the people in the chariot could clearly see that the giant palm of the evil beast was composed of 17 corpses. Some of the corpses were missing a head, while some of the corpses were missing limbs. There were also some that had viscous red blood flowing over their bodies. This was truly a repulsive and stomach-churning sight. If it weren't for the chariot, perhaps everyone here would have been sent flying by the strike. However, this chariot provided them with extremely sturdy protection. Meanwhile, the purple gold bull spat several more beams of light, dealing significant damage to the evil beast. However, the more wounded the evil beast became, the more violent and furious it grew. It was wild with rage as it launched a flurry of relentless attacks at the chariot. This evil beast had no intelligence, so it received more and more wounds from the attacks of the purple gold bull. However, it still continued to attack, showing no signs of wanting to retreat. Although it seemed like the 4 Eternal River Tier elites had disposed of the other evil beast very quickly, this was because the Wide Travel Monk King and the others were unfathomably powerful. Although this chariot was also extraordinary, its charioteer was only a heavenly body tier elite. Thus, the power that it could unleash was severely limited. Anyhow, the evil beast received more and more wounds, which it eventually succumbed to. It was blasted apart, transforming back into a field of broken corpses. Only now was it finally destroyed. The Stone Emperor hurriedly steered the chariot away from this place. The smell of the rotting flesh was simply unbearable. They continued to advance, coming across several more evil beasts. Some were more powerful than others, with the strongest being at the Eternal River tier, and the weakest being at the Sun Moon tier. The Sun Moon tier evil beast was only composed of a dozen or so corpses. Moreover, it wasn't in a humanoid form, instead looking like a slightly larger boulder made of flesh. After advancing like this for a day or so, a sheet-thick mist suddenly appeared before them. They couldn't see through this mist no matter how powerful their vision was. The Stone Emperor stopped the chariot. Right now, everyone was wearing a hesitant expression. Should they continue forward? This place was extremely uncanny, and perhaps there would be fatal dangers if they continued forward. As long as we don't come across living Genesis tier saints, this chariot can block anything, the Stone Emperor guaranteed. They all exchanged a glance before nodding slowly. Advance. Chapter 1323, 1323 Who am I? 1323 Who am I? The chariot slowly advanced into the thick fog. This fog was truly thick. Standing in the chariot, they could barely see a meter in front of themselves. Moreover, if it weren't for the defensive barrier around the chariot stopping the fog from seeping in, perhaps it would be difficult for them to see each other as well. Ling Han reached over to grab the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden's hand. If something terrifying were to appear here, he would immediately place his wife into the Black Tower. As for the others, that would depend on the situation. After all, they had only gathered together because they appreciated each other's talent. There wasn't any strong bond or friendship between them. The chariot continued to advance, issuing a loud rumbling as it did. This was the might of saintly material. Ling Han gazed forward. However, regardless of how wide he opened his eyes, the scene before him was still a picture of swirling fog. Even the eye of truth couldn't penetrate it. It was as if this fog were eternal. However, after a short while, the fog before them suddenly vanished, revealing a courtyard. Within this courtyard was a youth who was practicing sword techniques. He only looked 13 or 14, yet the aura that radiated from him was clearly at the Mountain River tier. This was astounding. He was so young, yet he had already reached the Mountain River tier. Wait, no. Ling Han hurriedly shook his head. He had clearly been in a chariot charging through a thick fog, so how had a courtyard suddenly appeared before him? How had a youth suddenly appeared before him? Where are the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden and the others? Ling Han hurriedly looked around. However, where was the chariot? Where were the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, the Stone Emperor, and the others? They were nowhere to be seen. As he frantically looked around, the youth stopped practicing his sword techniques. He then also started to gaze around at his surroundings. His actions were identical to Ling Han's. Could it be that he was that youth? Ling Han raised his hand, and the youth also raised his hand. There was a dazed look on the youth's face. Has my divine sense left my body? Ling Han shuddered, and he was suddenly tugged toward the youth by a powerful force. However, the youth stood there unmoving as if he hadn't noticed Ling Han crashing into him at all. Pooh! The two of them collided together, yet neither of them was thrown to the ground. Instead, Ling Han was like flowing water as he fused into the youth's body. At this moment, he was completely fused together with the youth. No, they weren't fused together. Apart from his name, this youth didn't have any other memory. His mind was like a blank canvas. Thus, it was probably more accurate to say that Ling Han's divine sense had become the owner of this body. His mind was a bit hazy, and two names churned about in his head. One was Ling Han, and the other was Ding Zizhen. Who am I? Ling Han was a bit dazed. The memories that belonged to him were disappearing at a rapid speed. In the end, only one thought remained, that was, his name was Ding Zizhen. As for other matters, he didn't know anything. He ferociously bit his tongue. My name is Ling Han. This thick fog was an illusion formation that was subtly affecting his mind and body. I'll enter the Black Tower. This thought flashed through Ling Han's mind, yet he discovered that there was no Black Tower within his body. It was as if he had genuinely become Ding Zizhen. What's going on? I'm not Ding Zizhen, I'm Ling Han. Ling Han shouted in his mind. He was trying to remind himself of his identity. The fact that there was no Black Tower within his body was the greatest flaw of this illusion. Noticing this flaw allowed him to maintain his identity and awareness. Ding Zizhen. Several youths walked into the courtyard, and one of them said, "It's time for the clan competition." Heh, I suggest you obediently admit defeat. Otherwise, we'll beat you to the point that you can't cultivate for 3 months again. Hurry up and follow us. What are you lagging behind for? These youths looked around 1 or 2 years older than him. Their cultivation was also above his. Ling Han discovered that his cultivation level was only at the low extreme of the Sun-Moon tier. Meanwhile, the cultivation levels of the youths in front of him were at least at the medium extreme of the Sun-Moon tier. In fact, some were even at the high extreme or consummate level. However, Ling Han was unafraid. He possessed a power that surpassed 6 stars, and he had even perfected his comprehension of the regulations. Thus, his battle prowess could probably surpass 6 stars as well. He followed these youths, crossing through several pavilions and halls. This place was unbelievably large, and they only arrived at a training ground after walking for a long time. Many people were waiting there already, some of them old, some of them young, some of them male, and some of them female. The cultivation of everyone present was different, ranging from the Mountain River tier to the Sun-Moon tier and to the Heavenly Body tier. The weakest individual was only at the Shattering Void tier. This was an infant that was being held in its mother's bosom. Gasp! They're at the Shattering Void tier at birth? Where the bloody hell is this? They're virtually immortals at birth. What stunned Ling Han even more was the fact that he saw the occasional person releasing their Eternal River. These were definitely Eternal River tier elites. However, like the others, they were obediently standing among the crowd. There was an elevated platform at one end of the training ground, and there were several people seated above this platform. Their faces were all shrouded in mist, making them appear extremely mysterious. Ling Han merely took a glance at them, yet he felt as if his divine sense were about to be ripped into shreds. They're far too powerful. These people could definitely blot heaven and earth with a hand, obliterate planets with a snap of their fingers, and destroy galaxies with a breath of air. Are they saints? Even Eternal River tier elites could only stand by the sides of the training ground. Thus, the status of the people seated on the platform was definitely far above that of Eternal River tier elites. If they weren't saints, what else could they be? In any case, saints were still divided into 4 categories. The people on the platform definitely weren't small saints. Perhaps they were great saints, or perhaps they were saint kings. Let the Ding clan's end-of-year competition begin. Following this loud announcement, pairs of cultivators entered the training ground and started to fight. The youngest cultivator was only 10 years old. Surprisingly, however, he was at the low extreme of the Mountain River tier. This wowed the audience and won the praise of everyone. As expected of Ding Yaolong, he's the 77th generation successor of our ancient ancestor, and his ancestral bloodline is still relatively pure. He's only 10, yet he's already this powerful. He'll definitely become a powerful and influential figure of the Ding clan. This youth was incredibly powerful, being able to battle against cultivators at the high extreme of the mountain river tier, even though he was only at the low extreme. In fact, after activating some kind of secret technique, he was even able to defeat an opponent who was at the early stage of the consummate level. Tide of the Ages. I never imagined that Yao Long was actually this talented. He's only at the mountain river tier, yet he can already wield the power of time. He's the fortune of the Ding clan. Meanwhile, the powerful beings on the platform nodded in praise. Ding Yaolong left the training ground to the sound of praise and applause. After several more rotations of battle, it was finally Ling Han's turn to fight Ding Zixian's turn, to be more precise. His opponent was also at the low extreme, though his cultivation level was slightly higher than his. He was at the middle stage, while Ling Han was only at the early stage. Moreover, he was one of the youths who had gone to call him just then. "Obediently admit defeat," the youth commanded as he attacked Ling Han. Ling Han counterattacked, yet he instantly discovered that he had genuinely become another person. He didn't possess a powerful physique and defense anymore, and his power couldn't surpass 6 stars either. All the secret techniques that he had mastered had vanished as well. Right now, he merely possessed power at the early stage of the low extreme of the mountain river tier. Moreover, his battle prowess couldn't even surpass 1 star. Pong! After dodging several strikes, Ling Han was finally sent flying by a kick. Trash! While he was flying through the air, he saw his opponent mouth this with an expression of complete disdain. Ling Han collapsed to the ground in a heap. He tried to crawl up to continue the battle, yet a burst of agonizing pain suddenly shot through his body. He was unable to withstand this, and he instantly lost consciousness. When he suddenly jerked awake, he heard several cries of astonishment around him. He had returned to the chariot, and his surroundings were still blanketed by thick fog. The Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, Stone Emperor, North Emperor, and the others were all in the chariot. No one was missing. So uncanny. Chapter 1324, 1324 Dream. 1324 Dream. Did you guys also enter an illusion and discover that you had become a youth called Ding Zixian? Ling Han asked. The Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden was the first to nod in affirmation. The expressions of the others changed drastically. Then, they all nodded one after another. They described their experience, and sure enough, their experiences had all been exactly the same. They had become Ding Zixian and entered a clan competition, where they had been brutally defeated. This obviously hadn't been a dream. Dreams couldn't be so realistic, and they couldn't be identical to everyone either. It's this blanket of fog. Everyone looked at the thick and persistent fog around them. This was a very easy conclusion to draw. It was definitely this fog that was affecting them. However, among everyone present, the lowest cultivation level was the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier, while the highest cultivation level was the consummate level of the Heavenly Body tier. Yet, this huge discrepancy in cultivation level hadn't changed the fact that they were all caught off guard by the illusion at exactly the same instant. Moreover, they were all aboard a chariot that was forged from saintly material. In terms of defense alone, this chariot was even more powerful than elites at the consummate level of the Eternal River tier. However, they had still been affected by the fog. Could it be that this fog possessed saint-level power? They all looked at one another, deep frowns on their faces. Should we continue forward? This was the question on everyone's mind. Even the Stone Emperor was slightly hesitant. He was confident that his chariot could guarantee everyone's safety as long as no saint appeared. However, reality proved that this dense fog could still invade their minds and forcefully drag them into an illusion. There hadn't been any danger in the previous illusion, but who could guarantee that things would remain this way? They were all prodigies of the younger generation, and as long as they grew up without a hitch, their future would be limitless. It wasn't necessary for them to take a huge risk for the opportunities in this place. "I want to advance for at least a little longer," Ling Han said first. "Same," Faceless said. More and more of them nodded in agreement. They were all young king tiers, and thus they were extremely courageous and resilient individuals. At the same time, they were also incredibly curious individuals. This thick fog was like a puzzle that whetted their appetite to investigate. "Haha, then let's continue forward," the Stone Emperor said with a loud laugh. He started to steer the chariot forward. They were still surrounded by thick fog, and they still couldn't see their surroundings. However, at some point in time, the surroundings suddenly became clear again. What appeared before them was still that training ground. "I've returned again." By testing whether he could sense the Black Tower in his body or not, Ling Han could determine whether or not he had entered the dreamland. He had become Ding Zizhen again. However, he was clearly older this time. This was probably 1 year into the future. However, his cultivation had barely increased at all. He was still at the early stage of the low extreme. Looking at the people from last year, however, they had all grown taller and stronger. They had all advanced at least 1 subminor level. The most impressive person was Ding Yaolong, who had already advanced from the low extreme to the high extreme. He had actually advanced 2 minor levels. He was only 11, yet he had already reached the high extreme of the mountain river tier. This was simply incredible. Thus, it wasn't surprising that Ding Yaolong had become the most brilliant star in the intraclan competition. Meanwhile, Ding Zizhen had become an absolute joke. This kid, if it weren't for Clan Elder Ding, was sacrificing his source power at all costs to forcefully elevate him to the mountain river tier. It would have been impossible for him to reach the immortal level in his entire lifetime. Yeah, he was only at the spiritual ocean tier when he was born. I've heard that only lowly commoners are born with such a low cultivation level. You know, I'm starting to doubt whether he's a genuine child of the Ding clan. Many people slandered him coldly, not showing any care and compassion at all, even though they were all members of the same family. The scene abruptly ended here, and Ling Han's vision became a blur as he returned to the real world. Everyone was awake now, and they were all wearing a look of displeasure. In that dream, they were Ding Zizhen. Thus, Ding Zizhen being humiliated was equivalent to them being humiliated. Could it be that this place was created by Ding Zizhen? In that illusion, he's only at the mountain river tier. However, this thick fog can seep through saintly material and affect our minds. This is definitely the handiwork of a saint. He definitely experienced some incredible opportunity afterward, allowing him to flip the tables. The prodigies started to discuss their thoughts. Ling Han pondered for a moment before saying, "Did you guys take note of Ding Yaolong? Only 1 year passed, yet he advanced 2 entire minor levels." Everyone nodded in response. They were all prodigies of the younger generation, so their talent was naturally top-notch. However, how long would it take for them to advance 1 minor level? Even in the mountain river tier, this would take them at least several decades. Those who possessed essence divine flames like Huangji had were outliers. As for people like Ling Han who possessed a reincarnation tree, that was even more freakish. The reincarnation tree would be a precious treasure even in the celestial realm. What on earth is this clan? The prodigies were all stunned. Not only had Ding Yaolong's cultivation advanced in leaps and bounds, but the cultivation level of the other people in the illusion had also advanced at an astonishing speed. A thought suddenly flashed through Ling Han's mind. Perhaps Ding Zizhen is from the celestial realm? If this were the case, it would be understandable why the cultivation speed of the children in this clan was so fast. After all, they were using celestial techniques. In any case, Huangji had advanced to the Genesis tier in only 5 years. Calling this astonishing would be an understatement. Let's continue forward. At this moment, everyone's interest was piqued. They all wanted to make sense of the situation. The chariot continued forward, and they were stealthily dragged into the illusion again. It was impossible for them to avoid this illusion. Another year had passed in the illusion, and it was time for the intra-clan competition again. However, Ding Zizhen was still only at the early stage of the low extreme of the mountain river tier. In fact, such a situation would be standard in the immortal realm. Generally speaking, advancing 1 sub-minor level in the mountain river tier would take several hundred years. So, how could one be much stronger after just a year? However, in the Ding clan, everyone else's cultivation level had seen huge improvements. This was especially the case for Ding Yaolong, who had already advanced to the consummate level of the Mountain River tier. During this intra-clan competition, Ding Yaolong wasn't simply impressive. Rather, he was able to place 10. He was the only Mountain River tier cultivator in the top 10. Moreover, he had even defeated an opponent who was at the late stage of the low extreme of the Sun Moon tier. Ling Han knew that Ding Yaolong had definitely reached the pinnacle level of the Mountain River tier. Moreover, he had reached the peak stage of the pinnacle level. However, those at the peak stage of the pinnacle level would only possess power on par with the early stage of the low extreme of the Sun Moon tier. Yet, Ding Yaolong had defeated someone at the late stage of the low extreme. Can I achieve this? Ling Han admitted that he could indeed exhaust such an opponent to death using his freakish physique. However, defeating such an opponent head-on? That would be impossible. Ding Yaolong possessed a secret technique that could age his opponent's attacks. That was right, age. When a punch was thrown, its power would naturally weaken with the passage of time. Eventually, it would lose all of its power. Ding Yaolong's secret technique could accelerate this process by hundreds, or even thousands, of times. Thus, his opponent's attacks would have already lost much of their steam by the time they reached him. Can he control time? Ling Han's heart thumped in excitement. Time was the most mysterious power. If he could wield the power of time, his battle prowess would increase by heaven knew how much. This was the intention of these illusions to help them master the power of time? In any case, the result of the intra-clan competition was just as expected. Ding Zijian was crushed, and his result was naturally the worst. The illusion ended, and everyone came to their senses at the same time. Some of them were dazed, yet some of them, like the North Emperor and Stone Emperor, had a glimmer in their eyes. Like Ling Han, they had also noticed Ding Yaolong's terrifying secret technique. Let's continue forward. Chapter 1325, 1325 Severing Mundane Tier. 1325 Severing Mundane Tier. The chariot continued forward, and they were drawn into the illusion again and again. This was the path of Ding Zijian's growth. However, the only memory that was recorded was of the intra-clan competition that occurred at the end of each year. This was probably his deepest and most agonizing memory. Ding Yaolong was still as brilliant as always, quickly advancing to the Sun Moon tier and placing higher and higher in the intra-clan competition. Ding Zijian was still the weakest, and he was still scorned and ridiculed by his fellow clan members. It was as if he would never grow stronger. Several years passed, and when Ding Yaolong reached the age of 16 years old, he stopped participating in the intra-clan competition. This was because he had already advanced to the Heavenly Body tier. The Ding clan had a rule, whereby those who had reached the Heavenly Body tier couldn't participate in this kind of competition any longer. However, he was still a dazzling prodigy who was liked and admired by numerous young women. One of these women was Ding Zijian's secret crush. Ding Yaolong was extremely licentious, and he wouldn't reject any beauty that came running into his arms. It wasn't long before he got many women pregnant. However, he didn't plan to wed any of these women. He was the superstar of the Ding clan, so he had to marry someone who could match his status. As for the women in his clan, he was merely toying with them. The young woman who Ding Zijian liked also became pregnant. However, after being rejected by Ding Yaolong, she chose to take her own life. This infuriated Ding Zijian, and he stormed off to seek a battle with Ding Yaolong. However, he was beaten black and blue by Ding Yaolong's followers before he could even meet him. In fact, he was almost beaten to death. Only after being bedridden for 6 entire months was he finally able to recover from his severe wounds. Once he recovered, he immediately left the Ding clan to travel around the world. He knew that if he stayed in the clan, he would never be able to surpass Ding Yaolong. Thousands of years passed, and then tens of thousands of years. However, Ding Zijian was still a weakling. His cultivation had merely risen from the early stage of the low extreme to the middle stage. Moreover, he was already transitioning from a young adult to a middle-aged man. Yet, the lifespan of cultivators at the low extreme was only 100,000 years. Right at this moment, however, Ding Zixian's luck finally came. While exploring an ancient site with a group of people, the extreme dangers ended up killing everyone but him. However, it was also at this moment that he finally obtained a divine pill. After ingesting this pill, he not only lengthened his lifespan, but even elevated his physique and talent. This was a comprehensive transformation. Ding Zixian had been severely wounded in his mother's womb, and it was because of this that he was only at the spiritual ocean tier at birth. This was unlike other clan members, who were all at the shattering void tier at birth. This congenital deficiency meant that his path of cultivation was as good as severed before it even began. In fact, he had only been able to advance to the immortal level because a powerful figure of the clan had forcefully elevated his cultivation. However, after ingesting the divine pill, he was able to mend this congenital deficiency, and thus began his journey of growing stronger. He finally started to receive the benefits of his hard work from before, soaring from the middle stage of the low extreme of the mountain river tier to the consummate level of the sun-moon tier in just 10 short years. Ding Zixian's rapid advance didn't stop here, and after another 100 years, he advanced to the heavenly body tier. After 1,000 years, he became an eternal river tier elite. After reaching this level, Ding Zixian could finally be regarded as a prodigy, even when accounting for the tens of thousands of years that had gone to waste. In fact, he could be regarded as a supreme prodigy. Only 50,000 years had passed, yet he had already become an eternal river tier elite. However, this wasn't the most astonishing part of his story. After another 10,000 years, he advanced to become a Genesis tier saint. Gasp! When the Stone Emperor and the others woke from the illusion, they all wore expressions of pure shock. In the illusion, Ding Zixian had left his clan very early on. Thus, they had no idea what level the supreme genius Ding Yaolong had reached. However, becoming a saint in just 60,000 years, this was simply unparalleled. My father is transformed from a heavenly cloud stone that obtained awareness and the ability to cultivate. However, he only developed intelligence after being nurtured by heaven and earth for almost 10 billion years. Afterward, he cultivated for almost 200 million years before finally managing to reach the Genesis tier. The Stone Emperor said with a serious expression. My master reached the Genesis tier after cultivating for 300 million years, the North Emperor said. With these two figures as comparison, it was starkly clear that Ding Zixian was an absolute freak. Could it be that a saint appeared in this galaxy in the past, and they were laid to rest here after death? Or perhaps he set up some formation here, thereby giving rise to the mountain river forest and sun-moon valley. It was with these feelings of curiosity and eager anticipation that they continued forward and re-entered the illusion. After becoming a Saint King, Ding Zixian returned to the Ding clan to challenge Ding Yaolong again. This time, he wasn't someone who could be beaten to the brink of death by Ding Yaolong's followers. He was finally able to battle against Ding Yaolong. The two of them exchanged ferocious blows, each unleashing their powerful techniques and strikes. However, once Ding Yaolong unleashed his secret technique, Tide of the Ages, Ding Zixian was instantly forced onto his back foot. Although he also possessed powerful secret techniques, he was still eroded by the Tide of the Ages, losing at least hundreds of millions of years of his lifespan. Ding Zixian was indeed powerful, yet Ding Yaolong was the true king tier. However, even though Ding Zixian had suffered a resounding defeat, he was finally able to win the attention of the clan. He received priority nurturing from the clan, and was also set up to marry a woman from an extremely powerful clan that was on par with the Ding clan. Moreover, his fiancée was also a prodigy. The two clans decided to hold the wedding when Ding Zixian managed to advance to the next major tier. Advance to the next major tier? The prodigies exchanged stunned looks when they woke up from the illusion. They were so shocked that they were unable to speak. Ding Zixian is already a Saint King. How can he advance any further? However, Ling Han was certain that the Ding clan was a force in the celestial realm. Thus, it was only natural that they would have elites above the Genesis tier. Anyhow, The realization that they were in the celestial realm also made it easier to swallow the fact that they were born at the shattering void tier and could advance one immortal realm cultivation level every few years. After all, Hunyo's achievement was even more astonishing. She had become a saint in just 5 years. The prodigies hurriedly advanced along the plain. They wanted to know whether Ding Zizhen had successfully broken through or not. Moreover, they wanted to know what major tier came after the Genesis tier. This time, Ding Zizhen struggled to break through, even though he was already a supreme prodigy. Ding Yaolong was even more prodigious than Ding Zizhen, yet he also struggled to advance any further. At this time, these two were already regarded as the twin dragons of the Ding clan. They represented the Ding clan's future. After a whopping 1 billion or so years, Ding Yaolong finally managed to break through first. After another 30 million years, Ding Zizhen also managed to advance to this completely new tier. Severing Mundane tier. They learned this from the delighted cheers of the members of the Ding clan. In a span of just 30 million years, the Ding clan had seen the birth of 2 Severing Mundane tier ancestors. This elevated the Ding clan's power and influence significantly. The Severing Mundane tier was broken up into 4 minor levels: the low extreme, the medium extreme, the high extreme, and the consummate level. This was identical to the previous major tiers. According to hearsay, one would need to sever their mundane carnal feelings a total of 4 times. After successfully completing this, one would gain the ability to accumulate and wield celestial qi. They would also enjoy the lifespan of heaven and earth, aging with the age of the universe. Ding Zizhen had cultivated in absolute seclusion before finally managing to reach the Severing Mundane tier. After reaching this tier, he set off to travel the world. This would be the solo adventure before his marriage. Afterward, he would have to guard his clan and shoulder the responsibility of a grand elder. While adventuring, however, he came across a woman by chance, both of them falling in love at first sight. However, Ding Zizhen's fiancée was famous for her domineering nature, so Ding Zizhen didn't dare to take this woman back to the Ding clan. Instead, they decided to live together. 30,000 years passed, and Ding Zizhen never ended up returning to the Ding clan. Instead, he chose to hide his identity and retreat to a home in the mountains with the woman that he loved, enjoying a life of peace and tranquility. Another 40,000 years passed, and he had a daughter with his wife. They named her Ding Ling. At this moment, however, his fiancée finally found him. She discovered that he had betrayed their engagement and married another woman, even having a daughter with her. She was naturally enraged, and she personally killed Ding Zizhen's wife and daughter while he was away one day. Everyone woke from the illusion again, their faces stained with tears. These tears hadn't been shed because of their emotions, but because of the effect that Ding Zizhen's illusion had on them. They couldn't help but feel an agonizing sorrow. It was as if their hearts were about to be torn into shreds. Chapter 1326, 1326 Final Will. Everything to save my daughter. 1326 Final Will. Everything to save my daughter. Is this Ding Zizhen's undying resentment? Beyond a saint, one would sever their mundane carnal feelings and enter the world of celestials. Was the resentment of Ding Zizhen finally reappearing after billions of years? Saints aren't the most powerful. Apart from Ling Han, everyone else was shaking in shock. This revelation had destroyed their long-held beliefs. They were unable to accept this. Saints were the most powerful beings in this universe. Those who could defeat saints had to be saints themselves. Is this fake? Has Ding Zizhen fabricated this himself? Even the Stone Emperor and North Emperor couldn't answer this with certainty. After all, once they accepted this to be true, their entire concept of cultivation would have to be restructured. Only Ling Han believed this with absolute certainty. This was because he already knew that there existed a celestial realm that was transcendent above the immortal realm. It belonged to the immortal realm, yet it was above the immortal realm. Hang on. If the immortal realm contains a celestial realm, then does the netherworld contain a demonic realm or something? No, that can't be. If one wants to enter the celestial realm, they need to fuse the regulations of the two realms together. In other words, they need to be both a saint and a demon master at the same time. Since that's the case, The realm that one enters should be the celestial realm, regardless of whether one is from the immortal realm or the netherworld. That was right. Regardless of whether one was an immortal realm elite or a netherworld elite, they would all end up in the celestial realm if they managed to fuse the regulations of the two realms. Celestial Qi contains both the regulations of the immortal realm and the regulations of the netherworld. A thought flashed through Ling Han's mind, and it was as if he had discovered some important notion. However, he was unable to put his finger on its meaning no matter what. This made him feel extremely frustrated. What happened afterward? The prodigies all wanted to know what happened next. Thus, they advanced in the chariot, speeding toward the next illusion. Sure enough, after advancing for a while, they were dragged into the illusion again. Ding Zizhen returned, only to discover that his wife and daughter had both been killed. He was naturally wild with rage, and a rain of blood started to pour from the sky. The entire galaxy became dim and lifeless, and even the sun was extinguished by the rain of blood. The entire galaxy had become a field of death. Is this the power possessed by those above the Genesis tier? He hadn't targeted anyone specifically, yet his anguished weeping had caused an entire galaxy to transform into a mass grave. Ding Zizhen returned to his hometown and charged into his fiancée's clan, personally killing her before retrieving a treasure from her clan. He brought this treasure to his wife and daughter's grave. However, he was also hunted by the two clans. In order to repair their relationship with the other clan, the Ding clan even dispatched Ding Yaolong to participate in the hunt. After a ferocious and bloody battle, Ding Zizhen was severely wounded, suffering several unhealable Dao wounds. Although he managed to flee, his life was already coming to an end. He buried himself with his dead wife, where he would rest with her forever. Meanwhile, he used the precious treasure that he had retrieved from his fiancée's clan on his daughter. After heaven knew how many years, this treasure would reform his daughter's deceased spirit, allowing her to achieve reincarnation and thus rebirth. Phew! Everyone exhaled loudly. They had witnessed the final battle between Ding Yaolong and Ding Zizhen in the illusion, and it had been far too terrifying. A slight shock wave from their battle had been capable of obliterating numerous large planets and annihilating countless beings. Even saints don't possess such power, the North Emperor said with certainty. Although my master is only a small saint, I know that even saint kings will struggle to obliterate a planet. If they want to obliterate a planet, they'll have to unleash one of their more powerful attacks. However, those two managed to obliterate incredibly distant planets with just a slight shock wave from their battle. Saint Kings definitely can't achieve this, the Stone Emperor said. Everyone nodded slowly. At this moment, they finally accepted that there was indeed another major tier above the Genesis tier. This tier was the Severing Mundane tier. However, from Ding Zizhen's memory, there was no shortage of Severing Mundane tier elites in his hometown. Just the Ding clan alone had 10 or so Severing Mundane tier elites. Meanwhile, his fiancée's clan also had a similar number of Severing Mundane tier elites. This was petrifying. To their knowledge, each galaxy only had a maximum of one saint. However, in Ding Zizhen's memory, just one clan alone could house 10 or so elites that were above the level of Genesis tier saints. What kind of place was that? It's the Celestial Realm. Ling Han answered in his mind. Ding Zizhen had come from the Celestial Realm, and that explained why there were so many elites in the Ding clan. Moreover, taking into account the pyramid structure of elites, Severing Mundane tier elites definitely weren't the most powerful beings in the Celestial Realm. Otherwise, there was no way a single clan could have 10 such elites. That would simply be heaven-defying. Since you people have come, it means that my daughter's spirit is almost about to reform, a voice suddenly said. This voice was uncannily familiar. It was Ding Zizhen. In the illusion, this was the identity that they had assumed. Thus, they were naturally extremely familiar with this voice. Help me complete the final step and aid my daughter in her rebirth. As a token of gratitude, the person who helps me can learn the celestial technique, the Tide of the Ages. Ding Zizhen said. This wasn't a voice, but rather a thought that traveled directly into their minds. This was the dying will of Ding Zizhen, a will that had been left heaven knew how many billions of years ago. If his daughter wasn't saved, this will wouldn't disappear. The prodigies were all extremely excited at this moment. Celestial technique, Tide of the Ages. Wasn't this the secret technique that Ding Yaolong had once used? This was the secret technique of the Ding clan, and it could accelerate the flow of time by tens of thousands of times. It could age an attack, and it also age a being. This secret technique could be regarded as one of the most powerful defensive techniques. At the same time, it could also be regarded as one of the most powerful offensive techniques. During his youth, Ding Yaolong had used this secret technique to defeat an opponent who was 2 entire minor levels above him. At that time, he hadn't even reached the pinnacle level yet. However, he was still able to surpass 8 stars. That was simply incredible. Theoretically speaking, one's power could only surpass more than 6 stars after they reached the pinnacle level. Once they advanced to the next major tier, their power would fall back to 6 stars. However, this was a secret technique, not pure power. Thus, the two didn't clash. I have to obtain this. At this moment, they all eyed each other cautiously, hostility brewing in the air. Who didn't want to obtain this secret technique? Why don't we find the resting place of Senior Ding's daughter first? Ling Han suggested. Since Ding Zizhen was willing to offer such an astounding secret technique, reviving his daughter definitely wouldn't be easy. Thus, now was far too early to have an internal conflict. The people here were all king tiers apart from Zhou Quan and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden. Thus, their self-control was naturally outstanding as well. They nodded in agreement and forcefully suppressed their greedy urges. There was no hurry. The chariot continued forward, yet they didn't enter the illusion again. They had already experienced everything that Ding Zizhen had wanted them to experience. Moreover, they had also learned some other things. For example, why did the mountain river forest and sun-moon valley open 33,333 years and 44,444 years apart? This was because Ding Zizhen had been engaged with his wife for over 30,000 years before finally marrying her. Then, after another 44,000 or so years, his wife gave birth to their daughter. This was also a relic of his undying will. As for why there was celestial qi, that was because Ding Zizhen had come from the celestial realm. In fact, he was the celestial. He had guarded this place for billions of years, for no other reason but to revive his daughter. However, were the evil beasts in this place also related to Ding Zizhen? They probably were. This was the two-realm battlefield, where blood, deceased souls, and corpses would mingle. Add to that Ding Zizhen's severing mundane tier will, and it wasn't strange that this place had given birth to eternal river tier evil beasts. At the very least, the golden sand had probably been formed from Ding Zizhen's corpse. It was imbued with his celestial martial intent, so it was only natural that even a saint had been stunned upon seeing it. However, since they could experience the illusions, the 4 eternal river tier elites that had arrived before them had most likely experienced the same illusions as well. Hurry! There was a bright gleam in their eyes as they urged the Stone Emperor to make the chariot go faster. Rumble! The chariot sped forward. This chariot was almost invincible below the level of saints, and its advance was simply unstoppable. After around a day, the thick fog around them vanished, revealing a mountain before them. This mountain was a neat rectangular prism, and it was as if it had been forcefully carved out by someone. That's not a mountain. It's a coffin. Chapter 1327, Ancient Coffin. Chapter 1327, Ancient Coffin. The thick fog dissipated, revealing a mountain-sized coffin. Ling Han and the others weren't surprised to see this. After all, the illusion had made it clear that Ding Zizhen had buried his daughter here. Moreover, their journey to this place was in order to revive Ding Ling. If a dead person weren't laid to rest in a coffin, where else would they be laid to rest? However, this coffin was far too large. It was thousands of meters tall and at least 9,000 meters long. If someone claimed that this was a mountain range, it would definitely be believable. On the other side of the coffin, there stood 4 people, each separated a certain distance from each other. They all exuded tremendously powerful auras, making it seem as if they were the center of the universe. They were none other than the four eternal river-tier elites: the Wind Rider Divine King, Wide Travel Monk King, Pale-Faced Scholar, and Wolf-Headed Brute. Sure enough, they had arrived here before them. More importantly, they were also quite courageous. After all, not everyone would dare to enter the illusion so many times. What if they became stuck in the illusion and couldn't wake up? When one's divine sense left their body would slowly shrivel and eventually die. Now that we've arrived, it's a free-for-all. The prodigies all hopped off the Stone Emperor's chariot. Little Han, when you have spare time, come visit the Universal Tao Galaxy, the Stone Emperor said. Oh, that's right. In another 100 or so years, the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy in the Myriad Directions Galaxy is going to recruit new disciples. The prodigies from the hundreds of nearby galaxies will all gather to fight for the mere 100 spots. I hope to see you there. The North Emperor also wore a faint smile as he looked at Ling Han. He was extremely confident in Ling Han's abilities. Although one of them was the son of a saint, and one of them was the disciple of a saint, their hopes of becoming a saint in the future were infinitesimally close to zero. Becoming an eternal river-tier elite wouldn't be difficult, but becoming a saint would be close to impossible. The higher a senior's cultivation level, the harder it would be for them to raise a successor who was equally as powerful as them, to say nothing of raising a successor who was more powerful than them. As for Ling Han, however, there was a large chance that he could become a saint. Thus, even with their lofty status, the Stone Emperor and the North Emperor were still extremely amiable toward Ling Han. They didn't flaunt their cultivation as heavenly body-tier elites, nor did they use their status as successors to saints to belittle Ling Han. They were making a conscious effort to treat Ling Han as somewhat of an equal. Star Sand Martial Arts Academy? Ling Han asked with a blank expression. The Star Sand Martial Arts Academy was opened by the Star Sand Saint. The Star Sand Saint is a great saint, and in its 10 billion-year history, the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy has raised a whopping 8 saints. The North Emperor explained. Among the heavenly numbers, 9 is the extreme, the pinnacle. Thus, the Star Sand Saint has said that he'll only accept one more disciple. This is because it will be impossible for him to raise a 10th saint. So, every single prodigy is doing everything within their ability to enter the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy at this moment, the Stone Emperor continued. They want to become the 9th disciple of the Star Sand Saint so that they themselves can become a saint in the future. Yang Lin, the Cloud Maiden, and Ewing all heard this clearly. There was a look of eager anticipation on their faces. Great Saint. Although the Cloudstone Saint and Plentiful Sea Saint were also saints, they were only small saints. They could indeed look down upon the world, yet compared to great saints, the gulf between their abilities was like the distance between heaven and earth. If it weren't for their reputation and face, perhaps even the Cloudstone Saint and Plentiful Sea Saint would be willing to become disciples of the Star Sand Saint. If they became his disciples, perhaps they would have the chance to become medium saints. Otherwise, they would remain at the level of small saint forever. This was inevitable. After becoming saints, there was already no more cultivation technique for them to practice. Their martial arts techniques would have also reached a pinnacle. Thus, they would have to resolve any problem that they came across by themselves. There was no one for them to consult. As a result, their lifespan of 1 billion years would eventually be meandered away. If one could become the Star Sand Saint's disciple, their status would truly soar into the skies. Ling Han nodded slowly and said, I understand. I'll definitely go to the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy within 100 years. Then we'll meet again at that time, the Stone Emperor said with a loud laugh. However, as for this opportunity before us, I won't give it up to you guys. He rode his chariot toward the top of the ancient Coffin. His saint-level chariot obviously possessed the ability to fly. This chariot was the root of his confidence. In fact, he wouldn't be afraid even if the 4 eternal river-tier elites targeted him. Shio. The chariot flew to top the coffin and then disappeared. Ling Han and the others spread apart, starting to explore the secret of this coffin from different angles. Ding Zixian's deceased daughter definitely lay in this coffin. However, if they wanted to revive her, they obviously had to get her out of this coffin. Thus, the first problem was how they would open this coffin. Or, it could also be how they would get inside it. The Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden naturally stayed beside Ling Han. They circled the coffin, only to find that it was engraved with a dense layer of symbols. These symbols looked a little like formation patterns, yet they also looked a bit like the divine patterns formed by martial intent. After circling around the coffin, they didn't find any way to open it or any point of entry. Could it be on the top? Ling Han decided to climb to the top of the coffin. In this strange place, he didn't have the ability to reach a height of 3,000 meters with a single jump and thus reach the top of the coffin. However, as long as he had some footholds on the coffin, scaling to the top would be a simple task. Yet, when he jumped up and prepared to place a foot on the coffin, he felt an intense, chill grip at his heart. It was as if he would be damned to eternal doom if he dared to place his foot on the coffin. He forcefully retracted his foot. Pong! He fell to the ground with a loud thump, blasting a crater into the earth. "What's wrong?" the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden asked in confusion. Before Ling Han could even answer, a wretched wail suddenly traveled over from the distance. Like Ling Han, someone else had also thought about scaling up the side of the coffin. However, they were shattered into pieces of mangled flesh once they placed their hand onto the coffin. Blood sprayed through the air, forming crimson mist. Gasp! Although that person wasn't a supreme elite, they were still a sun-moon tier cultivator. Yet, they had died after just slight contact with the coffin. This coffin was extremely dangerous. At the same time, a deafening boom also traveled over from the sky. Everyone looked up, only to see a chariot descending from the sky. This was none other than the Stone Emperor. At this moment, however, the purple gold bull was actually missing a horn, and the chariot was also missing a plate on one side. Ling Han's expression involuntarily changed. That was saintly material, yet it had actually been damaged. The might of this ancient coffin was clear for all to see. Ding Zixian was a celestial. Since this was the case, it became less astonishing that the coffin had managed to damage the saintly material. *T, my father is definitely going to beat me to death now, the Stone Emperor wailed in grief. This chariot obviously didn't belong to him, but rather was something he had secretly brought along in order to show off. In his mind, he was merely going to a galaxy where the overall cultivation level was still lagging behind. Thus, it would obviously be impossible for his chariot to become damaged. After all, there was no saint in this galaxy. However, as his luck would have it, this galaxy indeed didn't have a saint. Yet it had a fucking celestial. This was an even more freakish being. Now, his chariot had become irreparably damaged. As a result, its power and might would definitely be affected. When he returned, he would definitely receive a brutal scolding from his father. Meanwhile, there was a lingering fear in Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden's mind. If Ling Han hadn't retracted his foot in time just then, he would definitely be a cloud of blood in the air at this moment. After all, even saintly material had been damaged by this coffin. Ling Han frowned and said to the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden, "Fly me up." The Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden nodded before unfurling her wings. She then grabbed Ling Han and soared into the air. After arriving above the ancient coffin, the two of them examined it carefully. However, this ancient coffin looked like a solid body, and they couldn't find the gap between the coffin and lid at all. Even if they could find this gap, who would dare to reach over and raise the lid? Strange. There was no way to enter or open this coffin. So how could they help Ding Zixian revive his daughter? Ling Han had initially thought that he would be able to see the entrance to the coffin from above. However, his sensitive divine sense told him with absolute certainty that there was definitely no entrance to this coffin. Otherwise, the Stone Emperor wouldn't have tried to force his way in, either, resulting in the damage to his saint-level chariot. What could he do? Chapter 1328, 1328, Pinnacle level of the Sun-Moon tier. 1328, pinnacle level of the Sun-Moon tier. Although there was no gap or entrance to the ancient coffin, no one present was willing to leave. This opportunity was far too great. Not only was no one willing to leave, but more and more people were also arriving. However, the thick fog had already disappeared, and it seemed as if the illusions that showed the memories of Ding Zizhen were only shown to the few people who had arrived first. In any case, the story of Ding Zizhen had already started to make its way around. Even though the new arrivals were suspicious of this story, they still decided to stay for a little longer upon seeing that the 4 Eternal River Tier elites had no plans to leave. Anyhow, the lifespan of immortals was extremely long, so wasting 10 or 20 years here wouldn't be a loss. As such, more and more people crowded around the coffin. In the beginning, there were only several hundred people. However, this quickly became a few thousand, then tens of thousands, and then hundreds of thousands. It probably wouldn't be long before the crowd reached 1 million. Eternal River Tier elites also started to arrive. Not only did the Purple Moon Divine Maiden come, but the Eternal River Tier elites of the 2 imperial empires also arrived. For example, Great General Xie had also come, along with several other elites Ling Han couldn't name. At any rate, these were all elites who were extremely renowned on the Cloud Apex planet. Even the Crimson Flame Emperor and Blue Cloud Emperor, the 2 most powerful elites, were astonished by the events in this place. They had both reached the consummate level of the Eternal River Tier and were currently cultivating toward the Genesis Tier. Right now, they couldn't come to this place by themselves, so they both dispatched elites from their imperial clan. The elite from the Great Crimson Sun Imperial Empire was Gu Su. He was the 4th-generation grandson of the Crimson Flame Emperor, and he had already reached the high extreme of the Eternal River Tier. His strength was top-notch, and he was dispatched here as the representative for the Great Crimson Sun Imperial Empire. He was both powerful and of a high status, so it was only natural that he had been chosen as their representative. As for the Blue Cloud Imperial Empire, they had sent the 9th son of the Blue Cloud Emperor. He was also the most talented son of the Blue Cloud Emperor, and he was destined to succeed the throne in the future. He was also at the high extreme of the Eternal River Tier. Ling Han wasn't sure whom the Netherworld had sent, though he was certain that they had also sent incredibly powerful elites. In fact, it was only because this place had only been discovered a short time ago that only the elites from the Cloud Apex planet had arrived. After a few more years, many more elites would arrive from the Long Light Galaxy. After a dozen or so years, perhaps even elites from neighboring galaxies would arrive after hearing of the news. In fact, even saints might appear. However, since there was no way to deal with the ancient coffin at this moment, Ling Han decided to enter the Black Tower to cultivate in seclusion. He would comprehend the secrets of the pinnacle level under the reincarnation tree. After perfecting her comprehension of the regulations of the 2 realms, the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden also obtained a chance to break through to the pinnacle level. Thus, she also decided to undergo comprehension under the reincarnation tree. There, she and Ling Han could also receive some tips from the Notionless Saint. According to the Notionless Saint, one would have to reach the pinnacle level in at least 1 major tier if they wanted to advance to the Genesis tier. Although this seemed like a fairly low bar, it was actually incredibly difficult to reach a pinnacle level in any major tier. Moreover, reaching the pinnacle level of a major tier was only a necessary prerequisite to advancing to the Genesis tier. It didn't guarantee that one would break through to the Genesis tier. The Notionless Saint wasn't weak, and he had reached the pinnacle level in both the Sun-Moon tier and the Heavenly Body tier. Thus, he could provide Ling Han and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden with a lot of inspiration. In reality, there was nothing for him to do right now anyway, so he might as well give them some tips to pass time. Time slowly crept by. In the blink of an eye, 2 months had already passed. In the meantime, Ling Han hadn't wasted the chance to temper his body in the immortal flames. Although he couldn't ingest berserk blood spirit pills anymore, he still needed to practice the secret technique, rising from the ashes. This made him feel mounting pressure. He definitely had to break through to the pinnacle level as soon as possible. Otherwise, he would be wasting valuable time. Once he broke through, he would be able to soar to the peak stage of the pinnacle level within 1 year. At that time, the door to the Heavenly Body tier would finally open to him. Once he advanced to the heavenly body tier, he would then be able to unlock the 5th level of the Black Tower and complete the 5 elements. By achieving this, he would be able to cultivate the indestructible Heaven Scroll to a more perfect level. However, neither Ling Han nor the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden saw any hope of breaking through. Even with the guidance of a saint, they were still unable to smash through the barrier to the pinnacle level after 60 years of cultivation. They weren't worried about this, however, as they had the help of the reincarnation tree. This meant that they had 400 times the cultivation time of other cultivators. This was an astounding advantage. Another 3 months passed, and Ling Han finally seized a shred of enlightenment. This enlightenment allowed him to instantly break through. He exited the Black Tower. Dark clouds instantly formed above him, and even this place was unable to obstruct the tribulation of heaven and earth. Ling Han actively shattered his godly bones as he faced heavenly tribulation. Meanwhile, the divine demon's sword also faced heavenly tribulation alongside him. In a strange sight, the divine demon's sword discharged countless shards of broken metal, significantly shrinking in size. It went from its original length of 3 feet long to just 3 inches long. However, its quality had elevated to level 8. It couldn't consume other godly metal, so it refined its own body? Ling Han couldn't help but sigh in emotion. As expected of divine metal, it had an innate desire to transform toward perfection. After he had broken through, it was as if the pride of this sword had also pushed it to level up, unwilling to stay at the same level. However, the divine demon's sword had shrunk tenfold, so wouldn't it become as small and thin as a needle the next time it refined itself? I've got to work hard to find more level 8 godly metal. I've got to return the divine demon's sword to its original size. No one ran over to check out the commotion. Right now, everyone's attention was on the ancient coffin. So what if someone was undergoing heavenly tribulation? Half a day later, Ling Han circulated a drop of indestructible true fluid and reformed his godly bones. He then entered the Black Tower and ingested a berserk blood spirit pill under the reincarnation tree. He would continue to cultivate and elevate his cultivation level. 3 days later, he advanced to the middle stage of the pinnacle level. This feels amazing. The situation around the ancient coffin was still the same as before. More and more people arrived, yet there was still no way to open or enter the coffin. Moreover, many great elites had teamed up to investigate the ancient coffin, discovering that the symbols on the ancient coffin were extremely valuable. In fact, these symbols even weakened the bottlenecks that had held them back for many years. After discovering this, the cultivators at this place naturally wouldn't leave anymore. This place became a holy land that attracted more and more cultivators. The ancient coffin was one of the attractions of this place. The other attraction was the dirt that contained golden sand. It was incredibly valuable, and even saints could receive inspiration from this golden sand. In fact, this golden sand could help saints advance to a higher level. Thus, this place became bustling with activity, with some people comprehending Tao and some people refining dirt. Ling Han even saw Xie Donglai among the crowds. He caused such a huge disaster, yet he was actually released? The reason for this was simple. This place had an ancient coffin with profound symbols, as well as golden sand that could attract even Genesis tier saints. So, as an extremely important descendant of the Xie clan, how could Xie Donglai forego this opportunity? Perhaps he might receive sudden enlightenment in this place and advance to the heavenly body tier. At that time, he would become a pillar of the Xie clan. Ling Han wanted to kill him, yet Xie Donglai comprehended Tao beside the ancient coffin all day long. Moreover, he was also accompanied by Great General Xie, an eternal river tier elite. So how could Ling Han have the opportunity to kill him? I refuse to believe that you'll stay beside the coffin forever. Ling Han was becoming a little impatient. Everything would be fine if Xie Donglai only broke through to the pinnacle level. After all, he had already advanced to the middle stage of the low extreme of the pinnacle level. With his current battle prowess, he would be able to suppress Xie Donglai with a wave of his hand. However, what if Xie Donglai broke through to the heavenly body tier? In any case, Xie Donglai was also a prodigy. Thus, he would still possess a battle prowess of at least 3 stars if he advanced to the heavenly body tier. That being the case, there was no guarantee that Ling Han could suppress him, even if he were at the peak stage of the pinnacle level. With Xie Donglai's talent, it's more likely that he'll advance to the heavenly body tier if he really does break through, Ling Han speculated. I must advance to the peak stage of the pinnacle level. If Xie Donglai breaks through, he'll definitely have to face heavenly tribulation. I'll seize that opportunity to kill him. Chapter 1329, Tide of the Ages. 1329, Tide of the Ages. For the Sun Moon tier, Ling Han genuinely didn't need to cultivate to accumulate origin power. The Berserk Blood Spirit Pill could flawlessly elevate his cultivation level. Moreover, while others could only ingest 1 Berserk Blood Spirit Pill every few years, he could ingest 1 every 3 months. Thus, Ling Han's days simply comprised of refining pills, refining golden sand, and comprehending the symbols on the ancient coffin. He lugged a huge amount of dirt into the Black Tower. He was more powerful in the Black Tower, so he could refine the golden sand with much more ease. Huh. Small Tower suddenly appeared and exclaimed in surprise, saying, "This contains celestial-level martial intent. A celestial might have died here, and his blood and flesh might have affected this piece of land," Ling Han replied with a nod. Small Tower swayed slightly, not replying immediately. It was as if it were carefully examining the golden sand. After a while, it said, "If you can obtain a large amount of this sand, I can extract a celestial technique from within them." Ling Han's heart quivered, and he asked, "What celestial technique?" "It's got to do with time. As for the specifics, I'll only know after I extract the technique," Small Tower replied. Gasp! Isn't this the Ding clan's untaught secret technique, Tide of the Ages? Ling Han couldn't help but feel invigorated with excitement. This was the bloodline secret technique of the Ding clan, which members of the Ding clan would naturally grasp if their bloodline was powerful enough, or after their cultivation reached a certain level. Perhaps it was because of this reason that this secret technique was etched into the body of Ding Zizhen. Even though his soul had already vanished, this secret technique was still etched in his blood, which had become one with this expanse of land. As such, this secret technique was also etched in this land. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to do anything even if they knew this fact. Take, for example, the notionless saint, who could only receive some inspiration from this golden sand. Perhaps he could advance from a small saint to a medium saint or great saint. However, there was definitely no way that he could extract a secret technique from it. Only the Black Tower could do this, as it was a supreme precious treasure even in the celestial realm. Ling Han was instantly filled with motivation. While most people spent their time comprehending the symbols on the ancient coffin, he spent his time collecting as much dirt as he could. Meanwhile, speck after speck of golden sand appeared in the Black Tower, eventually building up to become a small mountain. "Is that enough?" he asked. "No," Small Tower replied. "Is there enough now?" "No." Just like this, Ling Han continued to collect and refine dirt. After 3 entire months, Small Tower finally nodded hesitantly, saying that it could give it a try. After all, these specks of golden sand had only been dyed with a little celestial blood. Moreover, countless years had already passed since Ding Zizhen's death. Thus, the martial intent that was contained within the specks of golden sand was already starting to vanish. If it weren't for the fact that this celestial technique was coincidentally related to time, perhaps this martial intent wouldn't have even survived until now. Ling Han went to temper his body in the immortal flames. Meanwhile, Small Tower extracted a secret technique from the specks of golden sand, the Tide of the Ages. 3 days passed, and Ling Han had transformed into a 10-year-old youth. He was already close to grasping the initial concepts of rising from the ashes. Now, it was naturally time for him to ingest another Berserk Blood Spirit Pill so that he could elevate his cultivation by another level. Late stage of the Pinnacle level. "Take it," Small Tower said. A speck of light flew toward Ling Han, radiating with a glow that was even brighter than the sun. However, this glow wasn't painfully blinding in its brightness. You've extracted it? Ling Han asked. There was too little martial intent, so I was only able to extract a portion of the secret technique. If you can't comprehend it from this, you'll have to bring me another small mountain of golden sand, Small Tower answered. That would be another 3 months of hard work. Ling Han nodded in understanding. He wanted to grasp this secret technique in one attempt. Taking with him the speck of light, Ling Han arrived beneath the reincarnation tree. He then placed the speck of light onto his forehead and started to comprehend its profoundness. Wang! A loud rumble instantly echoed through his mind. It was as if a tsunami had formed, yearning to blast through his forehead. Meanwhile, the speck of light evolved in his mind, growing to an indescribably large size. Ling Han studied it carefully, observing countless swirls within the orb of light. As these swirls spun, Ling Han felt as if he were observing the life cycle of numerous planets, from birth to death. Billions of years passed in the blink of an eye. This was the evolution of time, the revealing of heaven and earth's secret. Ling Han reached out and tried to touch these swirls. The orb of light instantly disintegrated and spread throughout his mind. It then started to dim and disappear. It vanished without a trace. He couldn't examine it any further. Ling Han hurriedly started to comprehend what he had just experienced. Under the reincarnation tree, he had almost 400 times the amount of time of other people. He refused to believe that he couldn't grasp this secret technique with 400 times more time. He would be satisfied as long as he could swallow all the information and comprehend the general outline of the secret technique. He could slowly digest it and comprehend the finer details later. Time slowly crept by. After a month or so, Ling Han suddenly opened his eyes. "Age," he said softly. He teleported to a corner of the Black Tower and tapped his finger on a large tree. The leaves of this large tree instantly became yellow and fell. In just 30 minutes, the large tree had completely withered to death. I guess I've got a basic grasp of this secret technique. With a tap of my finger, I can cause a person to lose thousands of years of their lifespan in 30 minutes. However, this is purely aging a being and not maturing them. Otherwise, the tree should have blossomed and borne fruits. However, this didn't happen, and the tree simply aged until it died. Although I can wield the power of time, my control over it is far too weak right now. Even if I want to age a cultivator at the low extreme of the mountain river tier to death, it will take me an entire day of work. With my current cultivation level, there's no way I can unleash this secret technique for so long. What a shame. It would be great if I could pause time like Huangji. Ling Han couldn't help but sigh in emotion. Although they were both secret techniques related to time, aging and pausing time were completely different concepts. If he could pause time, even for just a short moment, it would give him incredible advantages during battle. On the other hand, if he wanted to unleash the full power of Tide of the Ages, he would need to obtain the ability to age time by at least billions of years with a snap of his fingers. Otherwise, if he merely severed the lifespan of Eternal River tier elites or Genesis tier saints by a few hundred or a few thousand years, it would be like giving them a harmless tickle. Hang on. Can the aging of time be viewed as a curse? To those under the immortal level, even shattering void tier cultivators only have a lifespan of 1,000 years. If they're affected by Tide of the Ages, decreasing their lifespan by 100 years would already be a very good result. If they're affected by Tide of the Ages 10 times, they'll be as good as dead. Ling Han's imagination ran wild, and he thought of many, many possibilities. "Ling Han," the heavenly phoenix divine maiden suddenly called. "I'm about to break through." Ling Han faltered for a moment before hurriedly taking her out of the Black Tower. Rumble. Dark clouds gathered in the sky as heavenly tribulation prepared to descend. "We'll face it together," he said with a smile. This was a good chance for him to improve the power of heaven's might. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden was touched yet anxious. "Don't do it," she said. "The power of heavenly tribulation is far too terrifying. However, I'm confident that I can overcome it by myself. There's no need for you to help me." She was afraid that Ling Han would be wounded. "Hee hee. Ling Han couldn't help but feel secretly happy upon hearing this. He didn't reveal that he was unafraid of heavenly tribulation, nor did he reveal that he was simply joining her heavenly tribulation to comprehend his own Tao. Instead, he pulled the heavenly phoenix divine maiden into an embrace, giving her a passionate kiss. MMM. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden's eyes instantly widened in surprise. She felt that Ling Han's behavior was far too absurd. It was such a tense moment, yet he was still in the mood to do this kind of thing. Crackle. A bolt of lightning crashed down. It was as if even heaven couldn't watch on, and it wanted to pulverize Ling Han to death. Ling Han raised his hand toward the sky. The divine lightning crashed into him, yet it was unable to even singe his skin. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden instantly became wide-eyed with shock. Chapter 1330. 1330 The chance has come. 1330 The chance has come. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden knew that Ling Han possessed a freakish physique, yet she definitely hadn't envisioned that it was actually this freakish. Don't make trouble, can't you see that I'm busy? Ling Han said to the sky, a smile on his face. He then lowered his head and kissed the heavenly phoenix divine maiden, whose dainty mouth was still agape with astonishment. Quang, quang, quang. Heaven was furious. Furious that someone dared to interfere in someone else's heavenly tribulation. This was a challenge to heaven and earth. The devastating arcs of divine lightning instantly formed a dense net that crashed down on Ling Han. Only at this moment did Ling Han let go of the heavenly phoenix divine maiden. She would still need to face her own heavenly tribulation, as this was integral if one wanted to stabilize their cultivation's foundations. However, he still stood guard beside her so that he could help her dissolve any fatal dangers. This would be an impossible task for anyone else. Even saints couldn't achieve this. When one was faced with heavenly tribulation that corresponded to their cultivation level, they would face the danger of death, regardless of how talented they were. However, Ling Han was an exception. His physique was unbelievably powerful, meaning that he was fully capable of interfering in others' heavenly tribulations. The worst thing that could happen was that he would also have to face his own heavenly tribulation. As long as he didn't interfere in a heavenly tribulation of heavenly body tier elites or eternal river tier elites, he was completely capable of overcoming tribulations for anyone else. Perhaps I can make a business out of this. Maybe I'll charge some godly metal every time I dissolve a tribulation for a low-level immortal? Ling Han was truly poor, so much so that such a thought actually flashed through his mind. Forget about it. That'll be far too eye-catching. Being noticed by too many people isn't a good thing. Ling Han quickly shook his head, shooting this idea down. He decided to earn money through alchemy instead. Dissolving heavenly tribulation for others would attract far too much attention. More importantly, he might draw the ire of heaven if he helped too many people dissolve their tribulation. What if heaven suddenly unleashed an eternal river tier or Genesis tier heavenly tribulation to dispose of him? Ling Han and the heavenly phoenix divine maiden moved a suitable distance apart so that they could each face their own tribulation. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden was facing an ordinary pinnacle level heavenly tribulation. Meanwhile, Ling Han had not only intruded on her heavenly tribulation, but he had even helped the heavenly phoenix divine maiden block a strike. Thus, the heavenly tribulation that he faced was a whopping 10 times more powerful. However, it was only 10 times. Ling Han was completely unafraid. Right now, his physique was already as tough as level 9 godly metal, perhaps even a tiny bit stronger. Thus, there was absolutely no need for him to fear this kind of heavenly tribulation. However, this also revealed another piece of information: being swept into someone else's tribulation wasn't scary, but interfering in it was. If one dared to interfere in someone else's heavenly tribulation, they would face a tribulation that was several times more powerful. However, Ling Han wasn't sure whether it would necessarily be 10 times more powerful. Perhaps it would become more powerful the more times he interfered. In any case, he decided not to make a business out of this. It's probably best to show some respect to heaven and earth, Ling Han said in his mind. He didn't shatter his godly bones this time. so he was naturally relaxed and at ease as he faced heavenly tribulation. He observed the workings of the tribulation and transformed these observations into his own comprehension. The lightning divine pattern on his right hand became increasingly complicated, resonating with the rhythm of the great Tao. Half a day passed, and the heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden successfully overcame her tribulation, becoming a genuine Pinnacle level king tier. If one didn't advance to the Pinnacle level, they couldn't be regarded as a king tier, even if they had reached the Pinnacle level in a previous tier. They would fall off the platform of king tiers and become someone who was slightly more powerful than ordinary prodigies. This was the reality of cultivation. If one didn't advance, they would quickly be surpassed. Right now, the heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden was giddy with joy. Not in her wildest dreams had she imagined that she would one day reach the Pinnacle level. Although she hadn't reached the Pinnacle level of the Mountain River tier, meaning that she would only be able to surpass 9 stars at most, not 10 stars, she was still beside herself with delight. Ling Han leaned toward her as he said, "Congratulations, wife. Come, give me a kiss." The heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden wasn't Shui Yinyu, and she immediately began to resist. However, how could she suppress Ling Han? It wasn't long before she was held down and passionately kissed by Ling Han. "Little rascal, you're bullying me," the heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden chided softly. There was a watery glimmer in her beautiful eyes, making her appear especially beautiful and charming. Ling Han almost howled like a lustful wolf. Even his eyes had become red with excitement. However, it was a shame that his body was only 10 years old, meaning that he had absolutely no ability to do anything more. He was so devastated that he hammered the ground with his fists, his expression as if he wanted to murder someone. "What's wrong?" the heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden asked in concern. "It's nothing. I just want some peace and quiet." In a month, Ling Han could temper his body in the immortal flames again. After that, he could ingest a berserk blood spirit pill for one last time. His cultivation would reach the peak stage of the Pinnacle level, and at that time, all he would need to do was comprehend Tao in seclusion. Once he comprehended the profound mystery of heavenly bodies, he would have obtained the ability to advance to the next major tier. Meanwhile, the heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden immediately ingested a berserk blood spirit pill and raised her cultivation to the next level. In just 3 short days, she advanced 1 subminor level. This made her sigh with emotion. This was the benefit of following an alchemist. The rapid speed of her cultivation would definitely attract jealousy. Ling Han still had a vial of the rock spirit's spiritual liquid on him. However, this spiritual liquid was a heavenly body tier treasure, so it would be a huge waste if he drank it now. Moreover, it would clash with the effects of the berserk blood spirit pill. As such, it was probably best to leave it until he reached the heavenly body tier. The two of them returned to the area surrounding the ancient coffin. This was truly a strange situation. Ding Zizhen had said that he wanted someone to rescue his daughter, yet he didn't even allow them to see his daughter. So how on earth were they supposed to rescue her? Anyhow, Ling Han had already learned Tide of the Ages, so he naturally wasn't interested in Ding Zizhen's reward anymore. The only reason he remained here was for the golden sand. It was an incredibly valuable item, and he could sell it for good money. In addition, the symbols on the ancient coffin were also genuinely useful. Observing them could elevate his comprehension of the great Tao. "Ha ha ha, I'm going to break through," someone exclaimed. This wasn't a surprising situation. The ancient coffin could aid one's comprehension, so during the past 6 months, many people had already overcome barriers that had held them down for a long time and advanced to a new cultivation level. In fact, they could sense the commotion of someone facing heavenly tribulation every few days. However, the higher one's cultivation, the harder it would be to overcome the barriers between each cultivation level. This was evident from the fact that no Eternal River tier elite had broken through. Perhaps they would need to cultivate here for a dozen years or several thousand years before they could break through. To elites like them, breaking through within 1 million years would already be a delightful surprise. The excited exclamation of this person instantly attracted the envious gazes of many people. Ling Han glanced over, and a cold glint instantly flashed through his eyes. That was Xie Donglai. He was on the verge of breaking through to the heavenly body tier. The sparks of starry light that subtly flashed around his body were the clearest evidence of this. Moreover, he would also be the first person to break through to the heavenly body tier in these past 6 months. The reason for this was simple. First of all, he was indeed a prodigy of the younger generation. Second of all, he had already been stuck at this bottleneck for an extremely long time. Thus, with the help of the ancient Coffin, he was finally able to overcome this bottleneck and soar toward the next major tier. Ha 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 ha. Xie Donglai was smug with joy as he speedily ran away. As arrogant as he was, he still didn't dare to face heavenly tribulation here and risk affecting the others. Even if there weren't eternal river tier elites here, he still wouldn't dare to anger everyone. After all, a punch from each person would be more than enough to kill him. As he sped away, he saw Ling Han out of the corner of his eyes. Killing intent involuntarily flashed across his eyes. Once he broke through, Ling Han would be the first person that he killed. After that, he would kill Faceless. The former had stolen his woman, and the latter had dared to humiliate him. They both deserved to die. His speed was incredible as he raced further and further from the Coffin. No one from the Xie clan followed behind him. The only danger in facing heavenly tribulation came from the tribulation itself. After all, who dared to charge into someone else's heavenly tribulation? Even if someone did dare to do this, they would simply be swept into the tribulation themselves. That being the case, would they still have the ability to make trouble? Thus, heavenly tribulation was both the most dangerous and the safest event at the same time. Ling Han suddenly stood up. His chance had come. Chapter 1331, 1331, Heavenly Tribulation of Xie Donglai. 1331, Heavenly Tribulation of Xie Donglai. Xie Donglai's body became a blur as he raced into the distance. He was brimming with excitement at this moment, and he couldn't help but whoop in joy. In his eyes, the entire world was shining with a bright and radiant glow. He was a genius. He had advanced to the Mountain River tier in 100 or so years, and then to the Sun Moon tier in 1,000 or so years. However, he had been stuck at the peak stage of the Sun Moon tier since 300 years ago, unable to advance any further. Although the peak stage of the Sun Moon tier was only a hair away from the Heavenly Body tier, this hair-thin barrier had prevented heaven knew how many people from advancing. In fact, it could be said that the gulf between the two cultivation levels was like heaven and earth. Right now, however, he was finally going to advance to the Heavenly Body tier. He would soar into the sky with a single step. From this moment on, he wouldn't be a mere cultivator anymore. Instead, he would be a legitimate elite. Upon thinking of his brilliant might as a Heavenly Body tier elite, and upon thinking of how he would casually crush his enemies under his feet, he couldn't help but want to laugh out loud. His smile was so wide that it almost reached his ears. Faceless Ling Han, just you wait, he said in his mind. He accelerated forward, yearning to face and overcome his heavenly tribulation as soon as possible. He couldn't wait to become a Heavenly Body tier elite. In fact, he was so excited that he didn't even realize that he was being tailed by someone. Ling Han had activated the star-plucking step. After fusing the power of lightning into it, his speed was astonishingly quick. Not to mention that Xie Donglai still hadn't reached the Heavenly Body tier yet. Even if he had, his speed still wouldn't necessarily be quicker than Ling Han's. After all, Ling Han's power was almost bordering on the Heavenly Body tier right now. After an hour or so, Xie Donglai finally came to a stop and started to face his heavenly tribulation. In just half a day, he would advance to become a Heavenly Body tier elite. He stopped suppressing his cultivation. Dark clouds instantly gathered above him, heavenly tribulation descending at the same time. Meanwhile, his aura continued to rise, instantly reaching the peak stage of the Sun Moon tier. It eventually reached a level between the Sun Moon tier and the Heavenly Body tier. The longer he withstood the heavenly tribulation, the more his power would rise. This would continue until he truly reached the Heavenly Body tier. Correspondingly, the might of heavenly tribulation would also increase with time. It wouldn't reach the apex of its power right away. Quang! The first bolt of lightning crashed down. Xie Donglai roared and unsheathed a divine sword, slashing it toward the bolt of lightning. Ling Han suddenly revealed himself and charged toward Xie Donglai. Xie Donglai, it's time for you to pay your old debts, he roared. With the cover of heavenly tribulation, even eternal river-tier elites wouldn't dare to extend their divine sense over. Otherwise, they might be accidentally swept into heavenly tribulation themselves. In any case, not everyone was capable of forcing their divine sense through heavenly tribulation. Even saints weren't capable of doing this. Killing someone while they faced heavenly tribulation would truly be perfected, would leave no trace of evidence at all. One wouldn't be able to reconstruct the events, even if they possessed secret techniques of time. Ling Han. Xie Donglai was both furious and delighted. He loathed Ling Han, yet he hadn't expected that Ling Han would actually dare to charge into his heavenly tribulation. Wasn't he seeking death? He laughed heartily and said, I haven't gone looking for you yet you've already charged here to your own death. Xie Donglai, we've battled many times already. Since when have you ever enjoyed the upper hand? Ling Han asked faintly. He was brimming with confidence. This? Xie Donglai couldn't help but falter. He was rendered speechless. In the past, his cultivation level had been far above that of Ling Han. However, he couldn't translate this into an advantage no matter what. In the end, he could only run back to the Xie clan with his tail between his legs. He had almost been neglected, to the point where he would become and also ran forever. However, that was all because of Ling Han's luck. If he weren't receiving help from the Purple Moon Divine Maiden, then he was receiving help from Faceless or someone else. This had rendered his crushing advantage in power completely useless. This time, however, he definitely wouldn't allow history to repeat itself. Ling Han, I'm on the verge of advancing to the heavenly body tier. Before me, you're nothing but a mere ant. He roared with laughter as he charged toward Ling Han. If he swept Ling Han into his heavenly tribulation, the brat would be severely wounded even if he weren't killed. However, he didn't expect this to kill Ling Han with his heavenly tribulation. In any case, he didn't hope to kill Ling Han with his heavenly tribulation either. That would be far too unsatisfying. Only by killing Ling Han with his own two hands would he be able to vent the anger pent up in his mind. He simply wanted to torture Ling Han by sweeping him into his heavenly tribulation. This would be a good way to collect some interest. Ling Han was naturally unafraid, and he continued to charge at Xie Donglai. Pong! The two of them exchanged a blow. By doing so, Ling Han had also interfered with Xie Donglai's heavenly tribulation. Heaven and earth instantly noticed this, and another tribulation cloud formed above Ling Han. Xie Donglai was sent flying, a look of pure shock and disbelief on his face. He couldn't believe that the power of his strike was weaker than Ling Han's. How can this be? Although he hadn't genuinely reached the heavenly body tier yet, he should have still possessed the power to crush cultivators at the peak stage of the Sun-Moon tier. So, how was his power inferior? Unless? A possibility suddenly sprang into his mind. Fury and envy instantly clawed at his heart. Pinnacle level of the Sun-Moon tier. You actually reached the pinnacle level of the Sun-Moon tier. He was so jealous that he was almost about to go mad. He had spent 1,000 years trying to reach the doorstep of the pinnacle level, yet he hadn't been able to sense it at all. Afterward, it was the comprehensive loss to Faceless that had steeled his determination to break through to the heavenly body tier as soon as possible. He was yearning to exact revenge. However, who would have thought that Ling Han would easily reach the cultivation level that he could only dream of? Only a few years had passed. So what if you've reached the pinnacle level of the Sun-Moon tier? Once I reach the heavenly body tier, killing you will be as easy as killing an ant. Xie Donglai was seething with anger. However, what he said was also true. He was a 4-star genius, so even if he advanced to become a heavenly body tier elite, his battle prowess would still be able to surpass 3 stars, right? What would it matter even if Ling Han were at the peak stage of the pinnacle level of the Sun-Moon tier? There would still be a huge gulf between them. Then I won't allow you to reach the heavenly body tier. Ling Han said. He roared as he unsheathed the divine demon's sword. He would kill Xie Donglai as quickly as he could lest he caused any more trouble. Ling Han, you've opposed me time and time again, Xie Donglai shouted. This time, however, you're simply seeking death. As he faced heavenly tribulation, he also launched an attack at Ling Han. The remnant might of his heavenly body tier heavenly tribulation swept toward Ling Han, just a shred of it probably powerful enough to trouble him. However, he clearly didn't know that heavenly tribulation was merely nourishment in the eyes of Ling Han. It was something that would aid his comprehension. If Ling Han were truly struck by a heavenly body tier heavenly tribulation, perhaps his godly bones would remain unscathed. However, his skin and flesh would definitely be blasted into smithereens. If it were only a remnant shock wave of heavenly tribulation, however, that would be extremely easy to deal with. Quang. Ferocious divine lightning struck Ling Han and Xie Donglai at the same time. One was a heavenly body tier heavenly tribulation, while one was a sun-moon tier heavenly tribulation. The divine lightning definitely wouldn't strike the wrong person. Ah! Xie Donglai shrieked in agony, blood spurting from his body. To any prodigy, heavenly tribulation would be immensely terrifying. They would need to use every iota of their strength to oppose it. Yet, what about right now? Xie Donglai had suffered an attack from both his heavenly tribulation and Ling Han. Moreover, Ling Han was at the pinnacle level of the sun-moon tier, and his astonishing battle prowess was almost no weaker than heavenly tribulation. How could he withstand this? If this were all, then so be it. After all, Ling Han was also facing heavenly tribulation and his attack at the same time. However, the problem was, Ling Han was completely unaffected. He wanted to explode in rage, yet at the same time, he also felt shocked to the extreme. Ling Han's physique was far too freakish. It was already beyond the realm of his comprehension. Fuck, he cursed. Fuck yourself, Ling Han shouted. He wielded his divine demon sword, releasing a profound might and killing intent. Chapter 1332, Painting. Chapter 1332, Painting. Xie Donglai was a prodigy, after all, so he immediately changed his tactic after discovering the freakish toughness of Ling Han's physique. He would defend with his full power. As time passed, he would continue to become stronger. After a while, he would eventually advance to become a heavenly body tier elite. Coupled with his cultivation talent, he would possess battle prowess that was at least on par with the late stage of the low extreme. This would definitely be enough to suppress any sun-moon tier cultivator, including those at the pinnacle level. Moreover, he could reach this level in just half a day. He stopped attacking and focused all of his power on defense. However, after just a few exchanges, he discovered that Ling Han was just as hard to deal with as his heavenly tribulation. How is he so powerful? He clearly hasn't reached the peak stage of the pinnacle level yet, so he shouldn't possess battle prowess on par with the heavenly body tier. So, why does he seem like a heavenly body tier elite? Ling Han's overwhelming power was beyond his imagination. Xie Donglai naturally wouldn't know that Ling Han had already been blessed by celestial qi twice. This had perfected his comprehension of the regulations and allowed him to raise his battle prowess by at least 1 star. Even though he hadn't reached the heavenly body tier yet, his battle prowess was already on the verge of the heavenly body tier. Fucking peasant! Xie Donglai spat through clenched teeth. Not only had Ling Han stolen the woman he liked, but this lowly peasant had even surpassed him in terms of cultivation and battle prowess. He was unable to accept this. He gritted his teeth and waved his hand, retrieving a scroll. The scroll swayed in the wind as he unfurled it, and there was a painting of 12 golden warriors on its 3-meter-long body. Each of the warriors was suited in golden armor and holding a spear. This was clearly a painting, yet it exuded an overwhelming murderous aura. It was as if this wasn't a painting of 12 warriors, but instead of 12 demons who had massacred millions of people to forge the bloody spears in their hands. Blood servants, are you not going to show yourself? Xie Donglai cried sharply. Read more chapter on novel full. Wong. The painting lit up, and the 12 golden warriors surprisingly walked out of the painting. They stood in the air and pointed their spears toward the sky. At the same time, the murderous aura exuded from them instantly soared tenfold, or perhaps even 100-fold. Ling Han frowned slightly. These 12 golden warriors were all at the heavenly body tier. Although they were only at the early stage of the low extreme, they had a big advantage in numbers. Together, they were powerful enough to oppose a being at the middle stage of the low extreme. More importantly, their killing intent was far too terrifying. If one possessed slightly weaker willpower, perhaps their knees would already be buckling at this moment. Damn it! You actually forced me to unleash this technique. Xie Donglai gritted his teeth in anger and continued, however, since I've unleashed the blood servants, I'll be able to overcome my heavenly tribulation even if they can't kill you. When I succeed, it'll be time to deal with you. He had received this treasure from his senior after suffering greatly and returning to the Xie clan. This painting could only be activated once, yet it would summon 12 blood servants whose battle prowess was at the heavenly body tier. If this couldn't hold Ling Han at bay for half a day, he refused to believe that it couldn't. In his eyes, this was a test from his senior. If he was forced to use this painting, he would have naturally failed the test. However, he was about to reach the heavenly body tier anyway, so it wouldn't matter even if he didn't receive praise from this senior. His status in the Xie clan would still soar to a great height regardless. This painting was refined by a senior of my clan. He's at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier, and he extracted and sealed the divine sense of 12 elites from the Blue Cloud Imperial Empire in order to make this painting. Each of the blood servants had committed boundless crimes, and they were then refined by the bloody aura of battlegrounds, increasing their murderous aura. Xie Donglai wore a haughty expression, and he asked, "My blood servants, how will you block them?" Quang. A bolt of lightning crashed into his head. Although he managed to dissipate much of its might, it still left him especially disheveled. His hair was a mess, and he appeared to be in a very sorry state. His air of haughtiness instantly vanished into nothingness. Extracting and refining their divine sense? How ruthless! Although Ling Han had killed many people as well, death would mark the end of their hostility. However, the Xie clan actually refined the divine sense of their enemies into a treasure. In Ling Han's eyes, this was taking things too far. Anyhow, these golden warriors were beings formed from divine senses. Ling Han laughed loudly as he unleashed heaven's might. Wang. Not only was Xie Donglai's cultivation instantly weakened by 2 stars, but expressions of fear also appeared on the faces of the 12 murderous blood servants. They weren't afraid of Ling Han, but of the heaven's might that he had unleashed. Divine senses that had no host body shouldn't have existed in the world. They would be targeted by heavenly tribulation and attacked until they dissolved. Thus, the 12 blood servants were petrified once they sensed the heaven's might unleashed by Ling Han, even though this wasn't genuine heaven's might. Fuck! Xie Donglai mouthed silently. He was so astonished that he almost spat his tongue out. Heavenly body tier blood servants were actually trembling in fright before Ling Han. It was as if they had come across their nemesis. However, he was only a measly cultivator at the Sun-Moon tier. Even though he had reached the Pinnacle level, he should have still been trash before heavenly body tier elites. At this moment, Xie Donglai's mind was a jumbled mess. It was as if his mind were about to become sludge. Ah! He wailed in wretched agony. With his cultivation decreased by 2 stars, how could he withstand heavenly tribulation any longer? A bolt of lightning arced down, ripping a wound that stretched from his left shoulder all the way down to his right rib. It almost tore him into 2 pieces. Why is it like this? Xie Donglai roared to the sky. You're merely a lowly peasant, so what right do you have to suppress me? Even a finger of mine is 100 times more valuable than you. Any random elite from the Xie clan would be able to suppress you billions of times over. Are you done speaking? Ling Han asked coldly. Ever since Xie Donglai had set his eyes on the heavenly phoenix divine maiden, Ling Han had already sentenced him to death. You lowly peasant, Do you truly dare to kill me? Xie Donglai screamed in exasperation and anger. He had already been stretched while facing Ling Han's attacks alongside his heavenly tribulation. Now that his battle prowess had been weakened by 2 stars, how could he withstand their attacks any longer? What do you think? Do you think I'm merely playing around with you? Ling Han couldn't help but chuckle. You won't dare to kill me. Initially, Xie Donglai hadn't wanted to stoop as low as using this technique. However, he was genuinely out of options at this moment. Each member of the Xie clan has a marking planted into their body. If we die, these markings will immediately notify the elites of our clan and show them the appearance and aura of the culprit. So, if you kill me, know that the Xie clan's Grand Elder is nearby. He'll definitely rush over to slay you. A lowly peasant who dares to provoke the Xie clan. Was this true, or was it false? Ling Han didn't care. Die. He showed no mercy as he unleashed the Divine Demon Sword. The Divine Demon Sword automatically launched an attack, its sword projections brilliant as it unleashed an astonishing battle prowess. Meanwhile, Ling Han activated the Lightning Divine pattern on his right hand, attacking Xie Donglai with Divine Lightning. These attacks were devastating. Xie Donglai was astounded. He had already warned Ling Han of the consequences, yet he still dared to attack him. If Ling Han killed him here, Xie Qian would notice immediately. With his ability as an Eternal River Tier elite, he would be able to arrive here in a single stride. Then, he would kill Ling Han with a simple smack. In order to kill him, Ling Han was willing to sacrifice himself as well. He's fucking crazy. He wasn't belittling himself, but he was indeed far worse than Ling Han when it came to talent and coming across opportunities. If it were him, he would definitely value his own life above anything else. How could he sacrifice himself to kill someone else? At this moment, he was not only scared, but also weighed down by indescribable grief. How had he come across such a madman? Chapter 1333, Killing Him with My Own Hands. Chapter 1333, Killing Him with My Own Hands. I'm not lying. There's truly a clan marking inscribed on my divine sense. This marking guards the secret technique of the Xie clan, and it'll automatically shatter if anyone attempts to force me to reveal the secret technique. At the same time, it'll also notify the elites of the Xie clan and reveal to them who was trying to dig information from me. Xie Donglai was extremely flustered, and he continued, If you kill me, the consequences will also be the same. Ling Han laughed loudly and said, You're facing heavenly tribulation right now, so if I kill you, the elites of the Xie clan will only think that you're a fool who can't even withstand his own heavenly tribulation. This? Xie Donglai's face instantly started to twitch. This was entirely possible. Gasp! Is this why Ling Han isn't backing down? He wants to give me severe wounds so that I'll eventually die by my own heavenly tribulation? How detestable! Xie Donglai suddenly turned around. He was going to flee. You think you can escape? Ling Han aggressively attacked Xie Donglai, preventing him from escaping. With Xie Donglai weakened by heaven's might, Ling Han enjoyed an overwhelming advantage. Xie Donglai frenziedly tried to escape. He didn't want to die. Countless attacks rained down on Ling Han as he fought with his life on the line. In fact, he even combusted his battle prowess and sacrificed his lifespan in order to raise his battle prowess back to its original level. Otherwise, there was simply no way he could escape from Ling Han's clutches. Meanwhile, Ling Han activated the Tide of the Ages. Now was a good time to test the might of this secret technique. Xie Donglai's attack swept over, yet Ling Han stood proud and unmoving. Xie Donglai was deeply astonished. According to his estimate, this attack should have sent Ling Han flying, giving him the opportunity to break free from his grasp and escape. As long as he could return to the Grand Elder's side, only a rare few people in the world would possess the ability to kill him. Ling Han definitely wasn't one of these people. However, how was Ling Han not sent flying? Die! Ling Han's fist hammered over, and it was as if the sky were about to shatter. Read more chapter on novel full. Pong! Xie Donglai's left shoulder instantly exploded into pieces. Only a sliver of his left arm remained connected to his shoulder, Yet even this sliver of flesh looked like it would fall off at any moment. How many more strikes can you withstand? Ling Han continued to launch a flurry of punches at Xie Donglai. Pong, pong, pong. Under his heavy strikes, even heaven and earth started to shake. However, all of this commotion was concealed by heavenly tribulation. Even if someone happened to pass by, they would be completely oblivious to the fact that a bloody battle was occurring inside heavenly tribulation, unless they witnessed it with their own eyes. Of course, this battle couldn't be called a bloody battle anymore. After all, it was now a one-sided affair with Ling Han belting Xie Donglai. Xie Donglai was drenched in blood, barely any part of his body still intact. His vitality had also dropped to a dangerously low level. There was already no need for Ling Han to attack him anymore. As long as he was struck by a few more bolts of divine lightning from heavenly tribulation, he would be laid to rest in this place forever. Xie Donglai was boiling with resentment. Ling Han was clearly his killer, yet only he would know this. After he died, Ling Han could leave this place casually. In fact, he could even appear before Xie Qian without a worry in the world. It was at this moment that Ling Han stopped his attacks, turning around to leave. Aya! Xie Donglai roared in fury. Right now, even his heart was crying tears of blood. He was dying for nothing. However, there was suddenly a blur before his eyes as a figure rapidly dashed over, throwing a punch into his chest. Under the devastating power of the strike, his divine sense crumbled like broken tiles. It was Ling Han. Xie Donglai's eyes were filled with disbelief. Why had Ling Han suddenly returned to deal the killing blow? He could feel the marking in his mind fracturing. Once it shattered apart, that would mark the moment of his death. Meanwhile, the last moments that he witnessed and the last feelings that he experienced would all be transmitted to the minds of the heavenly body-tier elites of the Xie clan. Almost every single Eternal River tier force possessed this kind of technique. The members of these forces would all have a marking engraved into their divine sense at birth. First of all, this marking would represent their identity as a member of the force. Second of all, this marking would protect the secret techniques of these forces, preventing them from being revealed. Third of all, this marking would act as a deterrent if one dared to harm members of these forces. Their identity would be revealed, and they would be hunted until they were killed. Thus, Eternal River tier forces enjoyed a transcendent status. Successors of Eternal River tier elites could also act wantonly, with no one daring to kill them. However, Ling Han actually dared to kill him. He actually dared to reveal his identity to the Xie clan. One had to realize that there was already no need for him to return and kill him. Heavenly tribulation would have killed Xie Donglai. You thought that I wouldn't kill you with my own hands? Ling Han said as he stared into Xie Donglai's eyes. Ever since deciding to kill Xie Donglai, it was already inevitable that Xie Donglai would have to die by his hands, not by the hands of heavenly tribulation. He could only vent his anger if he killed Xie Donglai with his own hands. Xie Donglai stared at Ling Han with a stunned expression. At this moment, he didn't know whether to call Ling Han crazy or to admire his courage. Anyhow, none of this mattered anymore. He was about to die. I'll be waiting for you. In a dozen seconds at most, you'll come to accompany me. With his last breath, he spat one final sentence. Ling Han threw his fist over. Pa! Xie Donglai was smashed into smithereens. His bones and flesh disintegrated into dust, and his divine sense also turned into dust. A strange fluctuation surged out, instantly traveling a boundless distance. It was as if this fluctuation could disregard space. The heavenly tribulation that belonged to Xie Donglai quickly disappeared. Meanwhile, a strong sense of danger gripped at Ling Han's heart. A divine sense had locked onto him. It's far too powerful. The owner of this divine sense was definitely thousands of kilometers away, perhaps even further. However, their divine sense had surged over and locked onto him, capable of killing him with a single thought. This is the power of an Eternal River tier elite. This was the divine sense of Xie Qian, the Grand Elder of the Xie clan, a great general of the Great Crimson Sun Imperial Empire, and an elite at the high extreme of the Eternal River tier. To say nothing Ling Han, even the venerable Trinity would be insta-killed by Xie if he were still alive, and if he were to face his attack head-on. Right now, Great General Xie was still comprehending Tao in front of the ancient coffin. However, a wisp of his divine sense had traveled over, threatening Ling Han with death. The reason that this was only a threat was because Ling Han was still facing heavenly tribulation. If one interfered in someone else's heavenly tribulation by attacking them, they would be targeted by heavenly tribulation themselves. If one interfered in someone else's heavenly tribulation by protecting them, well, Ling Han had already experienced that. They would suffer from heavenly tribulation that was at least 10 times more powerful. Even Xie didn't dare to casually involve himself in someone else's heavenly tribulation. Although he was confident in staying alive, he would definitely need to sacrifice some life force. Was it worth sacrificing his life force to kill a measly sun-moon tier cultivator? No way. Heavenly tribulations would only last for half a day, and he could afford to wait for this long. Could a measly sun-moon tier cultivator possibly escape from his grasp? This wisp of divine sense didn't speak. It didn't interrogate Ling Han about why he had killed Xie Donglai, nor did it announce in a haughty manner that those who killed members of the Xie clan would face certain death. It did none of these things. Xie wisp of divine sense simply hung around quietly. With his status and power, there was no need for him to boast before such a lowly being. They were on completely different levels, like an emperor to his peasants. Ling Han also regarded this divine sense coldly. Xie divine sense had transformed into a projection of none other than Great General Xie himself. He was suited in armor, appearing especially mighty and overbearing. Killing intent oozed from his body. However, Ling Han was unafraid as he stared at this eternal river tier elite. Quang. Heavenly tribulation continued to descend, yet Ling Han didn't bat an eyelid. He stared at Xie just like that, as if he wanted to challenge this elite. Perhaps my strength is far inferior to yours, but my will is as strong as heaven. You can't suppress me. Astonishment gradually spread across the face of Xie projection. Who could overcome heavenly tribulation so easily? Thus, even though Great General Xie had seen many elites, and even though he was accustomed to witnessing death and experiencing dangers, he was still filled with a sense of astonishment. He had never witnessed someone facing heavenly tribulation with such ease before. Ling Han had actually astounded an eternal river tier elite. If news of this got out, he would definitely shoot to fame. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.